Pretty Little Liars Summer School, the sequel season to Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, is currently releasing on HBO Max, and I have plans on releasing a video about it once the season is wrapped. Which might sound strange coming from me because I've never really talked about Pretty Little Liars on this channel before, and it's for a very simple reason. I've never seen it. You see, back in 2011 when Pretty Little Liars originally came out, I was 12 years old, and the only thing I knew about the show was its iconic intro sequence.
Got a secret, can you keep it?
Yeah, that one. So with that limited amount of information, my 12-year-old brain went, this is a show for girls, and I'm never going to watch it. So I didn't, which is extremely weird looking back now because I used to watch Kim Possible, Totally Spies, and Winx Club when I was a kid. So like, I don't know what I was on back then. Maybe it's because there wasn't a redheaded woman as the protagonist. Nevertheless, 10 years later in 2021, the YouTuber Friendly Space Ninja made a video on the original Pretty Little Liars. And I watched it because I have a bad habit of watching stuff about things I do not care about. Seriously, it's a habit I need to break. I have so much useless information that I don't need to know. Like, why do I know that there's 5 after movies with a potential prequel on the way and that the entire franchise is based off of Wattpad Harry Styles fanfiction? Why do I have that information in my mind? It's just taking up space for no reason. Anyway, getting back on topic, his video was the first time I actually learned what the story of Pretty Little Liars was, and it made me realize I'd probably like the show if I gave it a shot. But I still didn't, because the show is like 7 seasons long with like 20 plus episodes a season, each that run with about an hour's length of time, and that's just too much of a time investment that I don't want to put myself through. I say as I'm currently watching Fairy Tail and One Piece with plans to watch Bleach in the future. Once again, fast forwarding to 2022, HBO Max released Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, the reboot sequel to Pretty Little Liars, and I thought this is perfect. I can get into the show with this new franchise that's coming out that I won't have to watch the original to see, and I'll be able to get into this franchise that I deprived myself of growing up because I made a baseless accusation about the show. So I was excited. I had seen the trailers for the show and it looked interesting to me. I'm always a good fan of a mystery, so I was super excited to watch the show, and as it released week to week, I watched every single episode that came out. And by the time that I reached the end of the season of Original Sin, I realized this is probably one of the worst shows that I've ever fucking watched.
Oh no, this can't be.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I hate this show, and I went into it so positive and happy because I was really looking forward to getting into this franchise, and it just spurned me at every corner. So I had originally planned on making a video on Original Sin back in 2022 after I finished the season, but I got kind of lazy and I ended up not making it. So I just buried those feelings deep down inside, and I moved on with my life. Until 2024, when they released the second season of Original Sin titled Pretty Little Liars Summer School, and I got curious. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna check out this new season, and I could probably make a video about it because I hate myself. So I figured I should rewatch the first season. It's been 2 years since I've seen it. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And, you know, with the refresher, it'll help me get into the second season even more. And I rewatched it, and I probably hated it more than the first time. It reawakened all of those horrible feelings and critiques I had about this show, like Goku going Super Saiyan after Krillin died.
You're gonna pay for that!
So, this video is 2 years of frustration in the making that I finally need to get off my chest to cleanse my soul. So sit down, shut up, and
Let's fucking go.
if you happen to not know the premise of Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, it follows the story of Imogen, Tabby, Faran, Noah, and Mouse. These 5 girls are our protagonists for the season, and they are being tormented by a masked serial killer known as A, who has a fixation on hunting bullies. Now, these 5 girls must band together in an unlikely friendship to find out who A is and why he's coming after them, and A's reason for coming after them seems to be connected to a secret their mothers have hidden from them their entire lives, as well as the fact that the secret their moms are hiding and the identity of A and his existence as a whole all seem to be connected to the mysterious death of a young woman named Angela Waters. Now that sounds like a very interesting premise to me, and it's honestly what hooked me into the show, as well as the fact that, you know, it's a part of the Pretty Little Liars franchise. So when I went into it, I was extremely excited to see this mystery unfold. However, within the premise itself is one of the major flaws of the entire season. That flaw being... Now, I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I fundamentally believe that these girls have no business being the protagonists of this season because they have no connection to anything that's going on in the mystery of the show. You see, something I left out when I was bringing up the premise is that the main characters of the show are between the ages of 15 and 16 years old, and that the show takes place in 2020. Now, that might seem insignificant, but I promise you, it is extremely important. You see, the reason for that is because the mystery of the show is revolved around the death of Angela Waters. Angela Waters' death is what created A. Angela Waters' death is the secret that the moms have hidden from their daughters. And Angela Waters died on New Year's Eve at midnight in 1999, which would technically make it January 1st, 2000, but whatever. That's when she died. So if you do the math, that means that woman died 20 years before the beginning of the show, which means she died 4 to 5 years before any of the main characters were born, meaning that the inciting incident of this show, the whole thing that this mystery is based around, that the girls are trying to solve, the reason they're being tormented by A, is something that they were not around for or know anything about in any capacity. I'm not kidding. All the information that I just told you is stuff that they learned throughout the course of this show. They've got no connection whatsoever to anything that's happening with this mystery. They're just solving it because the show wants them to be the protagonists, even though they've got no connection to it. Realistically, their moms are the protagonists of the show that we're watching them explore. It doesn't make any sense because we learned by the end of the season, A's end goal is to murder the girls' moms to get revenge for the death of Angela Waters. And it just makes me think, well, if the moms are the ones that A wants to kill, why is he bothering the daughters? Because the daughters don't know anything about Angela Waters. They don't know that their moms are hiding a secret from them. And on top of that, they're not bullies, at least at the start of the show when A starts bothering them. You see, I mentioned earlier that A has a fixation on hunting bullies. He only hunts bullies. Well, he's supposed to only hunt bullies, but the show constantly contradicts itself with him hunting people who aren't bullies. One of the first people he kills is the janitor at the school, who is just a normal dude doing his job. But, I guess the show thought it'd be cool to end the first episode with a kill, so he just died, and they kind of forgot his rule. So, great job, show. But nevertheless, A is supposed to only hunt down and kill bullies. It's his hyperfixations. It's what he does. But none of the girls at the start of the show are bullies. As a matter of fact, they're all victims of bullying. So theoretically, shouldn't they be the people that A is protecting by killing bullies instead of targeting them? Because each and every single one of them is bullied in a very different way. Imogen is pregnant, and she's bullied because she's 16 and pregnant.
People may be polite to you.
But trust me, nobody wants your pregnant, tragic ass here.
Tabby is being groomed by her boss at the movie theater that she works at. Faran is being harassed by her racist ballet instructor. Mouse is being bullied because she's queer.
Aw, no need to come out, rodent. We already know.
Which I have something to bring up about that later when I talk more about Mouse's character, so just pin that in your thought for a little bit and we'll get there later. And Noah is being harassed by the police sheriff who's in charge of her patrol. So all 5 of them are victims of being bullies, but they're not bullies themselves. So I'm just what's the point of them being the protagonists? There's no reason for them to be here whatsoever. They don't know anything about the mystery because they don't know Angela Waters because they weren't born yet. They don't know who A is because, again, they weren't born yet. They don't know anything about what their moms have been hiding from them because, again, they were not born when any of this stuff happened. They don't know about it, and then they aren't bullies until A pushes them into being bullies. It's just baffling to me. A is supposed to protect people from being bullied, yet he tricked these girls into becoming bullies. Within the first 3 episodes of the show, A wanted all of the girls to meet each other, so I guess it would be more convenient to harass them. It's never really explained why he makes them all unite with one another, because, from what I know about the original Pretty Little Liars, all of the girls were friends with one another prior to the start of the show. So when they started being harassed by the original A, that's what brought them all back together, as well as the fact that the mystery of the show was the mysterious death of their former friend Allison. But in this show, none of the girls know each other until A forces them together, which, like, why was that decision made? Like, I understand wanting to try and be different from what the original show did, but if the show's crux is a mystery about these 5 girls figuring out something going on and the secrets of their lives, wouldn't it be easier to make them know each other? And the setup for the show makes it feel like they should know each other, because the 5 girls are all daughters of a friend group who all still know each other and communicate with each other in some capacity. So, like, it's weird that these 5 women who know each other and are friends with each other and all live in the same town, who send their daughters all to the same school, have never introduced their daughters to one another. Especially because at the start of the show, Imogen's mother dies, and then Tabby's mother takes her in, meaning that they still had to be friends on some level for her to be the guardian of the child once she passed. Because, like, there's records that you need to sign for that stuff. So, like, how do these girls not know each other? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what the fuck, show? But anyway, getting back on topic here, A forces them into becoming bullies. He tricks all of them together by saying that a different girl at their school, Karen Beasley, who is the resident mean girl and bully of the school, had pulled pranks on all of them. And then they all decide to prank Karen back. But they weren't bullies until they pranked Karen, meaning that A, bullying them to get them together, that then turned them into bullies, doesn't make sense because they weren't bad people to begin with, and they don't know anything about the stuff that's causing him to do what he does in the first place. So, like, why? Why is it so hard to make sense? Like, Jesus fucking Christ, like, what's going on here? This is just the start of the show. I haven't even gotten deep into the video. Like, what the fuck is going on? Now, before I get into the story aspect and delve into the characters of the show, I need to bring up one last thing, and that's the excessive amount of wasted time and filler content that's in this season of the show. Doing some quick math real quick, that sounded a bit redundant, but we're going to keep it in here. So doing some quick math, there are 5 protagonists in the show. Let's say each of them has an equal amount of screen time, so that's 20% per character, right? So 4 out of the 5 girls that are the main characters of the show do not care about solving the mystery of A. They just do their own thing and live their own lives with their own disconnected storylines. There's only one of them that's focusing on finding out who A is, what happened to Angela Waters, and the secret that the mothers are hiding from them, that being Imogen. So out of the 5 of them, only 20% of the story is actually about the main mystery that you came to solve. The other 4 are completely disconnected from everything that's happening, and that's just insane to me. And I'm being generous with saying 80% of the show is filler, because it's actually more than that, because Imogen has an A and a B plot to her story. The A plot is finding out who A is in the main mystery of the story. The B plot has to do with her pregnancy, which has absolutely nothing to do with A, the mother, or Angela Waters. So, yeah, it's actually more than 80%, but I'm not going to go into it and, like, dissect the season by, like, how much screen time is dedicated to each individual character dealing with stuff that doesn't have, like, that's too much. That's too much, and I'm not going to kill myself trying to do that. So, you know, roughly 80% of the show is filler content, and it's absolutely crazy to me that that is what they decided to do with the runtime of the show. Because it's crazy that most of the girls in the show don't care that A's going after them and just live their lives as if they're not being targeted by a masked serial killer who's like 6'8". I don't know how tall A is, but like this dude is a unit. Like, look at this guy. Jeez. So like, I just don't understand why this decision was made. Because I've heard the criticism that in the original Pretty Little Liars, that the girls had reactions that were way too unrealistic to A, sending them messages on their phone. Because it was more in the early days when like cell phones were becoming like a really big thing. So they're a lot different than how people use social media and text each other and Discord and all those other kinds of things today. So people were like, they took things way too seriously based off of them getting like scam text messages back then. But now they've kind of gone in the polar opposite direction, and they just don't give a fuck. And, like, I'm sorry, if I'm being stalked in any capacity, I'm going to take that more seriously. Like, this isn't like a regular scam text message that's like, oh, hey, you forgot about your, Corvette's car insurance, when it's like, I don't have one of those. Like, this is clearly a scam that I would ignore. This is a person specifically telling you things that you've seen in person, but they just can't muster up the idea of even caring about what's going on. And I just don't understand it. Like, why don't you care or value your life? You're being targeted by a murderer who has killed people close to you. Why don't you care? It doesn't make any sense. Like, they just don't care so they can do pointless stuff that no one cares about. So, like, why? Help me understand. Maybe if I understand, I'd like the show more than I currently do. But since I don't understand, I don't like it. So, like, writers, just throw me a bone.
No, I don't think I will.
We're going to kick things off with Imogen Adams, the main character of the main characters. You see, in this ensemble cast, Imogen's kind of like the leader of the group. If I had to equate it to anything, she's like the Star-Lord of this group. Because, like, yeah, all of the Guardians of the Galaxy are important the same way all the other liars are important, but Star-Lord's still, like, the main protagonist and figurehead of the group that everyone knows about, and that's kind of how it is for Imogen. She's the one who's constantly trying to solve the mystery of who A is, what happened with Angela Waters, find out the secret amongst their mothers, and all that going forward. So, yeah, she is the spearhead of this show, and she's one of the characters that I have the least amount of problems with her storyline, at least her A plot. The B plot I've got problems with, but like that's intrinsically connected to another character's storyline, and I'll talk about that when I get to that character, so just hang on for a while. But Imogen trying to investigate A's murder is perfectly fine. It's what I came to the show to figure out. It's why I'm invested in the story, so it doesn't really bother me that much, but that doesn't mean I lack any criticism with her story. You see, I have a problem with the way the mystery is executed because it's not interesting at all. Like, the way Imogen solves the mystery of this show is just by pure coincidence. She just calls people who were alive and went to high school with their mothers during the time that Angela Waters died, and that's it. That's how the mystery's solved. Imogen just calls and talks to a bunch of random people who are around during the time that this stuff happened, and then they just tell her that that's it. I wish there was more to it, but that's literally how everything is solved. Or it's just by like random bullshit coincidence, like the scene that kicks off the mystery with Imogen finding this random paper that A sent to her mother right before she died. Like, I don't understand why she thought this was important. Now, it would make sense if Imogen saw that this is the message that her mother received from A, but she never does. So I don't really understand why that this is what she found interesting amongst all of the other junk in her mom's room. It's really weird. Also, I never brought this up before, but Imogen's mother takes her own life within like the first 15 minutes of the show. You see, the series kicks off with Davy, Imogen's mom, receiving a letter from A, that letter being this flyer about the 1999 rave where Angela Waters took her own life. And Davy, ridden with guilt, ends up taking her own life because of this, leaving a red letter A written in her own blood right where she died. Now, this focuses on a mystery that's kind of like a C-plot to Imogen's story, where she's trying to prove that her mother didn't take her own life, that she was murdered, and that it was A's fault after A starts hunting them down. And you're following this mystery trying to see where it's going to go, because, like, clearly, this is obviously a murder. Like, from the situation at hand, it's like Imogen and her mom just had a heart-loving conversation. Imogen talks about her mother always having this love for her, how she planned to help her raise her baby, and how they loved each other, and everything was perfectly happy between the two of them. But then, like, she sees this one flyer and then takes her own life, and then there's a random red letter A written in blood where she died. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's really creepy and mysterious. And something that really bothers me with the show, no one found this strange, because the cops were obviously called to investigate what happened to Imogen's mom, and they just rule it as her taking her own life. But, like, did not a single cop that went to that crime scene question why the woman wrote in her own blood a red letter A above the toilet? She died in a bathtub. What am I talking about right now? Did no one question why she put a red letter A above the bathtub where she took her life? Like, that's very suspicious. But I guess not, because the resolution to the story is that Imogen's mother was just guilt-ridden and suffered from mental illness in the past, so she just took her own life. But, like, why? That doesn't make any sense. This entire show sets up that there's supposed to be a mystery, and it kind of feels like they just had a twist for twist's sake, which is something this show likes to do a lot, even though it doesn't make any sense and isn't satisfying. Because having a twist just to surprise the audience does not make that a good mystery. Like, yeah, I didn't expect it, but me not expecting it doesn't mean it's good. You could have the most obvious person be the end-all, be-all result of a mystery, but if it functions properly, then that works. I remember George R.R. Martin had something to say about this years ago. He mentioned that, like, if someone figures out who you're supposed to write as the antagonist of your mystery prior to you releasing it, you shouldn't change it just to surprise them, because then it's going to mess up the entire story. That's basically what this feels like. The show sets up that Imogen's mother's death has more information to it than just her just taking her own life. But by the end of the show, they're just like, nah, that's what happened. But, like, what's with the red A? A sent her a message right before she died. That seems very suspicious. And then she just, like, randomly dies, like, a few minutes later. Like, it seems all way too coincidental that all this stuff happened, but then they kind of just go, like, nah, she just took her own life, and we just moved on. Not a single cop in the police force had anything to investigate about it, or even put it in any reports. They seem very apprehensive to run a full autopsy on her, because Imogen asks them to do so, and they're like, all right, fine, we need you to, like, get information about it, which, like, that seems strange to me that they didn't run an autopsy on a victim. Like, really? So, like, it's just, there's so much information about her mother's death that's so confusing that makes you think there's more to it, but then it just, no, there isn't. And I don't understand why they did this. I mean, I do, but, like, I don't understand why they did it, because, like, it's not satisfying. Surprising me, like, oh yeah, this mystery you invested so much time into watching, yeah, no, nothing came from it. Nothing happened. It was just, yeah, she took her own life because she was riddled with guilt. And then the stuff about her having mental illness literally comes out of nowhere. Granted, we do not spend that much time with Davy, so, like, we can't really ascertain from the little few minutes that she's alive in the show if she had mental illness in the past. But, like, Imogen just randomly talking to her dad, and her dad just being like, oh yeah, your mom, she suffered from mental illness. Yeah, she has to be on medication because of it. Yeah. Totally happened. Yeah, it was a huge problem, and, like, it was a factor in why we got divorced. Totally, bro. Like, it just comes out of nowhere. It just feels like they were like, yeah, no, yeah, she just took her own life. We wasted your time. Are you happy? Because, like, you know, it surprised you, right? Like, you didn't expect us to waste your time like this. It's cool, ain't it, huh? No. Nah, bro. It wasn't. It's actually quite infuriating. Noah's a character I don't really have many problems with on a personal level. As we continue in this video, you'll see characters that I don't like as individuals as well as their storyline, but in Noah's case, it's just her storyline. She's a pretty chill individual besides that point. You see, it feels like the writers weren't really sure what they wanted to do with Noah's story, given it changes a bit as her story progresses. At the start of the season, we learned that Noah went to juvie the previous summer, and now that she's out, she's currently on probation. She has to deal with house arrest, drug tests, as well as community service, and it's weighing heavily on her with her still feeling like she's in prison, even though she's made it home. And that's a pretty interesting aspect to follow, especially with her being tormented by A like the rest of the girls. So it's like Noah is going to have to deal with the trials and tribulations and the emotional ramifications of dealing with probation, as well as A hunting her down. I thought that would be pretty cool and fun to explore, except they kind of don't. So, by the start of the 5th episode, Noah's probation is just completely gone. Mind you, something they mentioned at the very beginning of her storyline is that even after Noah's house arrest dissipates, she'll still have to deal with going to community service and doing what I believe was daily drug tests.
No, the ankle monitor is for just 3 more weeks. Then peeing in a cup is for the rest of the year, and community service is every day.
The fact that it all just kind of disappears just feels like the writers were like,
nah, I don't really feel like it.
Really? Like, you set up all of these stakes that I was expecting to follow, and then you just got rid of it at the halfway point of the show. And I'm just like, well, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. So, like, where are we going with this? So something I didn't mention is during Noah's probation, while she was still doing community service, she caught the sheriff of the town, Sheriff Tom Beasley, receiving something quite unmentionable from a minor.
Gotcha. Scared you.
And I was just kind of like, oh, okay, that's really messed up. This is probably going to go somewhere. And then it didn't. After Noah catches him, it was kind of just like a whoa, drama, tension kind of moment. And then it just moved on. It never came up again the rest of the season. And I was just like, really? Really? That's just never going to come up ever again. Like, no one's going to talk about it. No one's going to bring it up as, like, evidence to try and, like, get this guy fired or anything. It's just left on the cutting room floor. We're just moving on from it, which is extremely weird, mind you, because this show takes a lot of sharp stances against messed up relationships, especially in relation to minors. Like, there's another character in this list that I'll talk about when I get to it, but, like, they talk about how they're being groomed by an older adult that they work under.
You stupid.
And it's like, okay, yeah, that's a problem. They make a sharp stance about how that's really messed up. But then, like, you have the sheriff of the town receiving pleasure from a minor who they're in control of because they're on probation and have to do community service. You would think that'd be important and that Noah would try and stop him or do something about it, but, like, no, it doesn't really go anywhere. It just kind of happens, and then we just move on as if we didn't just see that fucked up thing. And I'm like, what? Okay, then, whatever. I guess we're just going to keep going. So that goes absolutely nowhere. So they just completely get rid of anything that you watch within, like, the first 4 episodes of this show that have to do with Noah's story end up not mattering by the time you reach episode 5. So nothing to do with the sheriff, nothing to do with her probation. Everything just poof, gone like magic. So it's just like, okay, cool. That's 4 out of the 10 episodes of the show that were just completely pointless wastes of time for me. Fan-fucking-tastic. Very happy. So then, episodes 5 through 10 of the show follow the rest of Noah's story, which is her trying to get her mom to stop being a drug addict. Which, before I delve into that, there are 2 things that I need to bring up. The first of which being, Noah isn't actually a criminal. So we learn throughout the course of the show that Noah actually never committed a crime. Her mother was the one who was, like, I don't know, in possession of drugs or something. It's not really very clear. There was never a dedicated, like, flashback with dialogue to showcase Noah taking the fall for her mom's crime, because her mom did something with drugs and she was going to be arrested and Noah took the fall for her. I'm assuming her mother was in possession of hard drugs and Noah said that they were hers, and that's how she ended up being arrested. But, like, again, there isn't a dedicated scene with a flashback with dialogue that really depicts what happened. You just know that Noah took the fall for her mother, and that's how she ended up in juvie. And I'm like, okay, I guess. So that's where we're going with this. So Noah, at the start of the show, we didn't know that this was the case. We thought that Noah did something stupid that had to do with drugs and that she got arrested. But in the midst of episode 2, I believe, Noah has a conversation with her mother because she did something messed up, and it's just like,
why would you get involved in something like this? Unlike those other girls, you are on probation. That means jail next time. And where's your ankle monitor?
Sheriff Beasley hasn't put it back on.
Probably he'll be putting it back on for life now.
And the way the conversation is going is if Noah just was completely in the wrong here. But within the context of the scene, between Noah and her mother, they know that the reason Noah's in this more severe situation is because she took the fall for her mom's crime. You see, the scene is written from the perspective of the audience. From what we know, Noah committed a crime of her own accord, got sent to juvie, and then did a stupid thing that resulted in her getting more flack that could result in her going back and being put in jail permanently. But between Noah and her mom, this is the first actual stupid thing Noah's ever done, but it's made worse because she took the fall for her mother's crime. I would have thought that Noah would have had some kind of rebuttal in this scene because of that, but she doesn't. Because it's written based off of the knowledge that the audience knows and not the knowledge that the characters know, which felt very odd to me watching it happen. And I was just like, why is this like this? Like, after I found out that Noah's mom was the one who actually committed the crime, I remembered that scene and I was just like, well, wait a minute. Why did y'all have that conversation like that if you both know that she never committed a crime that you did? Like, why are you being mad that, like, she could go to... What's happening here? So it was just very weird. I'm not saying her mother didn't have a right to reprimand her for bullying Karen, because she did. But, like, also, you know that she's in this position because she took the fall for you, right? You would think there'd be a little bit more leniency in the reprimanding, but no. So, like, I don't know, man. It was just weird to me, and I had to bring it up. And then the next thing is that in episode 4, it's the last day of Noah's probation. Well, her house arrest specifically, but as I said, they kind of get rid of the whole probation by the start of the 5th episode. So, in episode 4, Noah's house arrest is supposed to end that night. And what happens is A breaks into her apartment complex and chases her. It's actually a pretty fun scene where Noah's trying to escape from A, because they mentioned that Noah used to be on track before she got put on probation, and she's trying to escape from A, and they established earlier on in the episode that she was a bit rusty. So she's running away from A, struggling to escape him, and the way she gets away from him is she jumps from her apartment complex to the building that was right next to it, which I thought was pretty cool. So she escaped from A by jumping there, and we notice, because they show a close-up shot of her ankle monitor, that she's outside of the boundary of her house arrest. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So that means that Noah is going to have a problem dealing with her house arrest now and her probation, because Sheriff Beasley is already on her ass because she caught him, doing something horrible. And now it's the last day of her house arrest, as well as the fact that his daughter Karen was killed by A, and nobody knows A is a thing. So Sheriff Beasley believes that Karen died trying to prank one of the girls, and he blames them for everything that happened to her because they had bullied her in an earlier episode. And it's like, okay, cool. All of this is culminating into a very interesting part of the story, but then, like, nothing happens. And apparently the reason A chased Noah is to force her to anonymously call in a tip that her mother was still on drugs and was stealing them from the hospital that she works at. And I'm just like, what? Why was that done exactly? Because A could have just done that himself. Because, like, it was an anonymous tip. When Noah called it in, she called it in completely anonymous. And I'm like, okay, cool. Why didn't A just do that? If A wanted to fuck with Noah's life and her mother's life, why didn't he just call in and be like, hey, anonymous tip, this nurse is stealing drugs. Boom. That would have been it. I don't understand why it was done. Also, like, why nothing happened with the ankle monitor? Because Noah broke the boundary of what her ankle monitor said, so why didn't anything happen from that? Like, the start of the next episode, Noah's just like,
Did you get your ankle monitor off?
I did this morning.
but you broke probation. You went out of your house arrest boundary. Shouldn't you have some problems with... No? Okay. All right. I'm thinking too much. All right. Fine. I guess I should just turn my brain off because, good writing in a mystery show, that's too much to ask for, right? So that's the first 4 episodes of Noah's story. Nothing makes sense whatsoever, and shit just kind of doesn't matter. But continuing on with the show, episodes 5 through 10 deals with Noah trying to get her mother to go to rehab after her life is kind of thrown into turmoil. Which, by the way, how was Noah's mom a nurse? Because, so Noah was arrested for what I'm presuming was harboring hard drugs, because Noah's mom has a drug dealer that sells her stuff, right? We never really know what kind of drugs her mom receives from her drug dealer, but, it's presumably something bad and illegal. So, how is her mom able to function? Because her mom is depicted as a really bad drug addict. She's stealing drugs from the hospital because she needs a fix. She's constantly buying drugs from the guy that she buys drugs from, who sells her indiscriminate drug X. And she's supposed to be a really heavy drug addict, but having family members, multiple family members in fact, that are nurses in various degrees of the nursing field, it ain't easy being a nurse when you're completely sober and a fully functional adult. So being a severe drug addict and being a nurse is something that I can't really see just flying by super easy. So how was she able to function if she was, like, this hung up on drugs? It's never really explained. Like, they make it seem like it's really bad. Like, Noah's mom has to go to rehab to fix herself because, like, she's really hung up on drugs. She's stealing drugs from her job. She's using all of her money to buy drugs from this drug dealer. But, like, then also at the same time, she's a fully functioning adult that's able to take care of a 16-year-old daughter, pay rent in an apartment complex, and then be a fully fledged nurse. So, like, it's not showing the ramifications of being a drug addict, which, granted, I've never seen this show. I've heard good things about it, but it's just not really my vibe. Euphoria. From the clips and stuff that I've heard people talk about Euphoria, it greatly and heavily depicts the both positive side and the massive negative side of being a drug addict. And Pretty Little Liars Original Sin just doesn't do that. For all intents and purposes, if you just took an isolated scene of Noah's mother, you would not think she's a drug addict. She seems perfectly normal. But then the story tells you that she's on a bunch of drugs between pills and whatever the hell she's buying from her drug dealer. So it's like, you would think something would be wrong with her, right? Like, something, somewhere, you notice it. Like, maybe she's a little twitchy. Like, you know, she doesn't have her drugs for a while, and then, like, she starts to act out. You would think something, somewhere, would be a tell that she is a massive druggie. But nope, because the show just didn't want to deal with it. It's just like, ooh, Noah's mom's a drug dealer. Tension, crazy, right? And then they just don't do anything with it. Just nothing happens. Like, nothing bad happens. Like, Noah's mom loses her job as a nurse, which would pay a decent amount of money. And then she picks up a job at a pizzeria, and they're still able to afford their apartment complex. Which, like, as someone who lives in an apartment complex, they're not cheap. Even if you work 40 hours a week, you're not going to make enough money to sustain your living at an apartment complex while taking care of a child on a pizzeria minimum wage salary. That shit is unrealistic. So, like, why is this not a problem? Like, this show just lacks any sort of ramifications for stuff that happens, and I just don't understand it. So, like, Noah just goes back and forth with the mom trying to get her to go to rehab, and then, like, we learn that Noah's boyfriend, Sean, which, by the way, Noah has a boyfriend named Sean. He's a pretty nice guy. He ends up being addicted to steroids. Like, he's apparently on the football team, and, like, everyone on the football team takes steroids, so, like, he does too to up his game. And Noah's like, yeah, Sean, I have a problem with drugs because of my mom, so could you, like, stop? And he's like, okay. And then that's kind of really all that happened. So, yeah, that's Noah's story. That's it. Episode 10, her mom says she's going to go to rehab, and that's kind of the end of her story. And like I said, Sean just stopped doing steroids because his girlfriend asked him to. There wasn't really, like, a big problem with it. So I was like, okay, yeah, cool, I guess. That's her story. It's kind of just, it kind of just happens. And I don't really know how to end this because, like, it was all pointless. Like, none of it mattered. None of it was connected to the main story. All of it was kind of just all over the place because they didn't know what they wanted to do writing-wise. And it just, Noah. Yeah. Faran is probably the first character in the show that I have problems with on, like, a personal level because she's kind of a prick, if I'm being honest. Her character is supposed to be the strong, confident type that is, like, very secure in everything that she does and who she is, but secretly she's really insecure and has a lot of problems. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with a character like that, but in regards to Faran, it just doesn't really work because she's unlikable. You know, usually with characters like this, it's like, yeah, they might seem unlikable at first, but then you see the cracks in who they are and you understand why they're driven to be the way that they are. But even after learning all of that information about Faran, I still didn't care. A great parallel to this is the character of, like, Hikaru Shinomiya from Kaiju number 8. She very much has the same kind of setup as Faran. She grew up with a family that taught her to be an overachiever, to be perfect, that she had to be the best at everything that she did. But deep down, you see that she has a lot of problems with that and really just wants love from the people that she cares about, despite the fact that she knows the only way she can get that is to be perfect. But she has a lot of nuance and her character is very likable, so I really love who she is as a person, and I enjoy following her story. Faran's kind of the opposite. The more I learn about Faran, the more of a prick she is, and the less I like her, so I don't give a damn when anything bad happens to her. It also doesn't help that Imogen is the one character who cares about what's going on with A. Faran would be the polar opposite to that. She's the character who gives the least amount of fucks about anything that A is doing.
Everyone else at the school gets to have fun and go to the carnival, and here we are dealing with this shit.
Actually, I'm going.
Henry got us tickets.
We gotta live. A is not going anywhere. That's for sure.
And it's just, like, it just bothers me because if this were a normal horror situation, right? The character who doesn't care about the killer, who's very lackadaisical, that never gets serious about anything that's going on, is usually the one who ends up dead. But in this case, Faran's got plot armor because she's one of the protagonists, so even though she's the one who gives the least amount of care about anything that A does, she survives. But you keep watching her neglect anything that he's doing, and it's just like, she's gonna die, right? Like, she cares the least. Like, something bad's gonna happen to her. She's gonna do something stupid because she doesn't take A seriously, and then she's gonna get hurt, or she's gonna die. Like, that's gonna happen, right?
Ha
Why am I supposed to like this person who doesn't care about anything that's happening in the story, is 100% self-interested? What am I supposed to like about this person? Oh, what, she's got problems at home with her mom and doesn't like her mom? I don't care! I don't like her! Why am I gonna care about her problems if I don't like her as an individual? She can suffer for all I care! Like, seriously. So, delving more into what Faran's pointless story is, her A-plot follows her dealing with her mother. Her mother is a severe perfectionist, wants Faran to be perfect, to be the best at everything that she puts her mind towards. She wants her to have a high standing in society so that she can live a peaceful and happy life and have a lot of power and influence. And it's like, all right, cool. I would assume that's what every parent wants for their kid, to live a very prestigious life and be happy. That's what she wants at the end of the day. But the problem is her mother goes to extremes to get this stuff done. So Faran is a ballerina, and when she was a child, her mother found out that she had scoliosis. Now, I don't know anything about ballet whatsoever, but apparently it was a problem. So her mother lied to her and had her undergo extensive surgery as a child, even though it was recommended against by their doctors, and she did it to get rid of Faran's scoliosis. However, because of this, Faran has always had chronic back pain that she's kept hidden from everyone. And then A kind of tells Faran that her mother made her go through the surgery, even though it was unnecessary, because A wanted to mess with the moms and create like a fraction between Faran and her mother. It's kind of a thing that's like a repeated trend here, with the exception of Imogen, because her mother's already dead by the time like the main stuff of the show happens. As I mentioned with Noah, A forced Noah to call in the anonymous tip that resulted in her mom being fired, and with Faran, A told Faran about the scoliosis surgery so that her and her mom would be on the outs with each other. And it's just kind of like, I mean, okay, whatever. Like sure, you made this 16-year-old girl who would probably already hate their parent just because like 16-year-olds have beef with their parents anyway. Hate them. Good job, serial killer man. So Faran gets upset with her mother because she found out that the surgery was unnecessary, and then she ends up deciding that she's going to have to take a break from ballet after going to see a doctor, and she's going to have to go through 6 months of physical therapy in order for her chronic back pain to go away. And it's kind of just like, oh, okay, cool, I guess. Like, I mean, that's what's going on here, so yeah, that's what happens. That's the A-plot for Faran's story. She finds out that she has, chronic back pain because of something her mom did. She gets mad at her mom. She goes to a doctor, and the doctor tells her to go on 6 months of physical therapy without doing ballet. But, like, I don't know. It got kind of weird with that aspect because, like, after Faran finds this out, she's, like, super confident in one scene where she's talking about, like, how she's like, yeah, I'm going to take this break, and then I'm going to come back even better and stronger than ever. And then, like, the next episode, she wants to do ballet again, like, immediately contradicting what she said in the previous episode. And I'm just kind of like, didn't you just say you were going to take a break so that you could heal proper? Why are you what's happening here? It kind of feels like they wrote in the resolution to her story way too early into the show, and they were like, damn, we've still got, like, episodes left. Let's have her backpedal just a little bit so we can, like, pad out the runtime. And it's like, bro, I didn't care about this whole story to begin with. Like, you backpedaling into the story more isn't helping me care about it any more than I already did. And also, nothing really happens with Faran's ballet teacher. I mentioned earlier that Faran is being bullied by her racist ballet teacher. nothing really happens with that. And you would think something would, because her ballet teacher takes a lot out on her because of her race. Like, at the beginning of the series, when A pranked Karen to get all of the girls put in detention so they'd all meet each other, he put a razor blade in Karen's ballet shoe, which resulted in her hurting herself. And Karen, because she doesn't like Faran because she's a better dancer than her and she's racist, she blamed Faran for doing it. And no investigation was done, but the ballet teacher just immediately said it was Faran, and then that was it. Everyone just said it was Faran, and then they just moved on. But, like, it always bothered me because, there's no logical reason that Faran would do that, because at the current point in time in the show when it happens, Faran has the leading position. Like, she's the most important ballerina in the entire show, because they're about to do a performance of Black Swan, and Faran is the Black Swan. And Karen was passed up because Faran was a better dancer than her. So then, why on earth would Faran put a razor blade in Karen's shoe when the only thing that would happen is it would come back to bite her in the ass? Like, why would anyone do that? That doesn't make any sense. Like, you've won, yet you went back and sabotaged the person you beat? Am I missing something? Like, am I crazy for thinking this seriously? Like, I want to know. Let me know in the comments. Like, am I crazy for thinking this? Because, like, if Faran already beat Karen, why would she need to then sabotage Karen when she already won? Like, what? I don't understand. Like, it doesn't really make any sense. But the show just kind of, like, did it. Like, we would all think, like, oh, that makes sense because, Karen hates Faran, so she blamed her for it. But then, like, if you take half a brain cell to think about it, it's like, wait, why would she do that? And it's like, yeah, I get it. Karen and the ballet teacher are racist and whatnot, and, like, that's why it was held against Faran even more. But, like, I don't know, man. It just doesn't make sense to me. So it just irked the hell out of me watching the show, and, like, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be thinking about it too hard. But, yeah, that was her A plot. The B plot of her story is significantly worse, and it pisses me off way more. So for this, I'll have to delve into the character of Karen and Kelly Beasley for a bit. Both of them, they're twins. So Karen is the resident mean girl at the school, and what happens is that after A tricks everyone to believing that the 5 main characters had done something to bully Karen, they're all thrown in detention, and after they're thrown in detention, all of the girls decide to pull a prank on Karen. They end up showcasing a very embarrassing video of her by inviting everyone from the school to go see a movie at their local movie theater, and they show the video, everyone laughs at it, and they move on, and it kind of ruins Karen's reputation. So Karen decides to, as they put it, pull a Carrie and, like, dump red paint on Imogen during the homecoming dance. When that happens, A shows up, grabs Karen, yeets her off of the balcony, and she dies. So that's how Karen ends up dying. And what happens is that Faran believes that the twin who died wasn't actually Karen, that it was Kelly. Because Karen's reputation was ruined, and Karen was always the more confident one and had Kelly do a bunch of stuff for her. So she assumed that Kelly was the one who was up in the rafters who was going to dump the paint on Imogen, and Karen survived and has now taken her sister's identity in order to avoid the embarrassment of what happened to her. Now, we follow this for most of the show. We see Faran investigating Kelly to see if she's actually Karen, because a lot of things aren't adding up. Kelly's all of a sudden become more confident. She started dressing like Karen. She started dancing better when Karen was the better dancer to Kelly. She has the same scar that Karen had on her foot from when she stuck it inside the shoe with the razor blade. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's not adding up with Kelly, and it's making you think, like, maybe Karen did take Kelly's spot. That'd be interesting to see what would happen when that all comes to a head. So Faran is investigating this the whole season, and then eventually, I guess it grabs the attention of A. They never really explain this in the slightest bit, because A looks like this the entire season. This is what he looks like. Except for in this one specific scene. He dressed up in like a theater costume and chased Kelly in order to find out if she was really Karen or Kelly. So he like backed her into a corner so that in a life and death situation, she would reveal who she was. And she says she's Kelly. And then he just disappears. And I'm like, okay. But this is the first time A ever does a costume change. Like, he does 2 costume changes. But one of them had a purpose to it. A was sneaking into a party run by the main characters later on in the show. So, like, it made sense that he would disguise himself so that they wouldn't notice he was there and could kill someone at the party. That made sense. But, like, in this scene, A has been to their school in his normal killer attire. So, like, why did he decide to change for this one thing? I feel like someone on the team thought it'd be cool if A looked like the Burger King man during this scene. So they just did that, and then they just moved on. There's never really an explanation, because A's been able to operate in the school in his killer attire before. So, like, why did he change for this one scene? I don't get it. It's just funny to me. So, yeah, you would think that's the end of it, right? You know, A almost killed Kelly, and she revealed that she's Kelly and not Karen. But no, there's actually still more that happens afterwards. Apparently, after this happens, Kelly starts dating Karen's old boyfriend, Greg. And there's a scene near the end of the show where the two of them are making out in the car. They're about to hook up, and she tells him,
Call me Karen.
Flag on the play. If I was dating a twin, and she told me to call her the name of her dead twin that died like a month ago, you know, the brakes are stopping, okay? It doesn't matter how much sexual tension is going on right there.
Say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
What did you just say to me? Like, we're not just brushing past that. Like horniness is not trumping anything in that moment. I'm gonna need an explanation for what just happened, and you're gonna need to, like, stand about, like, 50 feet away from me because you're kind of crazy right now. So, like, that's flag number 1. Flag number 2, I'm sorry, did you just ask him to call you Karen? So, like, are you Karen and not Kelly? Like, did you get away with it and people aren't questioning if you're Karen anymore? Like, is that what happened? Is that the implication here? Because it never gets addressed. That's just the end of it. That's where it ends. Faran stops investigating it. The show never goes back and addresses it. That just kind of happens, and we just move on. And I'm like, what? I had a resolution. When A attacked her, that was the resolution. I thought it was pointless that you made me experience all this investigation just to find out she's the person who she originally was to begin with. But then you tease me again with the mystery, and then nothing happens. What? Why are you doing this to me? What do you? Come on now. I just. What the hell is this show? Alright, folks, get prepared, because the threat level of the criticisms is going to raise up a bit from here on forward.
We're at Terror Alert Orange.
Mouse is one of the most infuriating characters in all of Pretty Little Liars' original sin, and that's for the very simple fact that her story makes no goddamn sense. I wish I could sit here and tell you it's so next level, so nuanced, that it's just confusing to people, but that's not really the case. Her story just doesn't make sense because the writers wrote it extremely poorly. Remember earlier how I mentioned Noah's story was confusing because the writers felt like they didn't really know what they were doing with the story, or at least that's how it came off to me as an audience member. That's Mouse's story to an astronomically different degree. So let's get into that. At the start of Mouse's story, the first thing we are shown to her, her literal introductory scene in the show, is her contemplating joining an LGBTQ club that's run at her school. And she gets bullied for this, because remember earlier when I mentioned that Mouse is bullied because she's queer. Now, nothing about this seems like a problem at first, right? Until you realize this doesn't come up throughout her entire storyline. So the first thing that we're ever introduced about Mouse is that she's a part of the LGBTQ community, and she's contemplating joining a club with other members of the community to interact with them. And you think that's going to be important. You think it's going to play into her story arc over the course of the entire show. Maybe Mouse is closeted about whatever she is, and she's afraid of coming out, so she's considering talking to other people in her community. But none of that ever happens, which makes me question, why did you draw attention to it then? Mind you, Me knowing that Mouse is queer is not because of the show. No. You thought the show would give me the information about something and draw my attention to at the beginning of the show? No. I had to Google it because it bothered me. Granted, I'm jumping ahead a bit. In season 2 of Pretty Little Liars, this one being summer school, there was a point where Mouse was talking to her boyfriend, and she mentioned that the two of them should throw a party for the LGBTQ community because it's the Pride Month episode in that season. And when Mouse brought that up, I literally paused the show and I went,
Say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
Oh yeah, that's right. Mouse is a part of that community. What is she? Because they never brought it up whatsoever. That was almost 16 hours into this show over the course of 2 seasons, and I still didn't know what Mouse was. So I literally paused the show and Google searched it to find out what she was supposed to be. In the entirety of season 1, they never bring it up. Yet the first thing we learn about Mouse is she's a part of that community. So it's very strange to me that you would pull my attention towards this like it was important just to not do anything with it. Now, if you wanted to just have it be that Mouse is just a part of the community and they never address it, that's perfectly fine. There are tons of characters that do that in media. A great example is probably the son from Strange World. I love that movie, by the way. But in Strange World, the son is gay, and they never really pull any attention to it. Yeah, he's interested in another guy because that's his sexuality. But, okay. We never have a plot point of like, oh, his parents don't accept him, or they don't know, or he's in the closet and he has to come out and he's trying to find people that like understand him. None of that happens. They just treat it like any other romance in any other movie. Like, if you reversed it and it was just like, oh, it's a girl that he's interested in, they would have treated it exactly the same. So I like that. You can do that kind of representation and just be like, yeah, this character is just this. We're not addressing it because like it's a normal thing. We don't need to address it. That's perfectly fine. But for Mouse, they purposefully drew the audience's attention to that fact and then did absolutely nothing with it. And the only reason I'm really harping on this is because a character's intro scene is extremely important. Take Aang from the last... No, not that one. Get him out of my face. There we go. That's the boy that I'm looking for. Aang from Avatar The Last Airbender, his introductory scene is this.
I need to ask you something. What? Please, come closer. What is it? Will you go penguin sledding with me? Sure.
Him saying that is extremely important to his character. It shows us who he is. He's a very goofy and jovial guy, and that aspect of his character carries over with him throughout the entirety of his whole series. That's who Aang is. He's a goofy kid that's just stuck in a situation to save the world. It's ridiculously important to who he is as a person. So the fact that the first thing you ever tell me about Mouse is that she's a part of the LGBTQ community, and then you don't tell me what she is a part in that community, nor do you ever bring up the fact that she was contemplating joining this club throughout the rest of the season. It's just, what did you do this for? Why did you do this? I'm not giving you brownie points for inclusion, okay? Putting inclusive things in the show shouldn't get you brownie points. You should just do it because people like that exist in real life. I'm not going to compliment you because you're like, hey, look, Mouse is a part of the LGBTQ community. We're good, right? Inclusion. No, I'm not giving you brownie points for something that you should just do because people like that exist in real life. It's not anything commendable anymore. But the fact that you drew my attention to it and then did nothing with it in the story, it really bothers me. And this is just her intro scene, mind you. Her story gets so much worse, man. Past this scene, we learn that Mouse is a sheltered child. She's like terminally online because her mother, her biological mother, Mouse comes from a lesbian household. So her biological mother, Dee, I believe is her name, doesn't want Mouse to go out. She's afraid of Mouse being anywhere that she doesn't know about. If she's not home, she wants to know where she is, who she's with, what she's doing, when she's going to get home, so on and so forth. She is very overbearing and overprotective. And at first, you're interested in this. You're like, okay, so what's going on here? Why is her mother so overprotective of her? Why is she so afraid that something bad is going to happen to her? Because Mouse seems perfectly normal. She seems healthy. It doesn't look like she has any kind of like problems or health issues that would prevent her from doing anything like any other normal kid. So why is her mom so anal about this? And then you learn that when Mouse was a child, she was almost kidnapped at a carnival. However, they ended up chasing the guy off, but he was never caught. So her mother has this hyperfixation and this irrational fear that the man that tried to kidnap Mouse when she was a child is still out there waiting for his opportunity to take Mouse away from them. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I like that. So the Mouse's story is going to follow her, proving to her mother that there's no reason for her to be afraid, that she can still go out and do normal things. And, okay, what I'm about to say is going to sound incredibly stupid if you've seen the show. But mind you, at the time I thought of this, I was watching the show for the first time. I didn't know anything about it. I was going in virtually blind, okay? So just keep that in mind. We learn that Mouse is interacting with older men online. Like, she contacts middle-aged men and assigns a time to meet up with them. And Mouse has a box filled with like all the different men that she's met. Now, what I originally thought, given Mouse's backstory, I thought Mouse was like... I thought Mouse was like some kind of vigilante. Like, she was meeting up with like pedophiles in order to take them out or have them arrested to find the one that tried to kidnap her when she was a kid so that she could prove to her mother that there's nothing to be afraid of since the guy's been captured.
Now comes the part where we throw our heads back and laugh. Ready?
Ready!
I know how stupid it sounds, but that's what I thought when I was watching the show for the first time. Because I couldn't think of any other explanation as to why she would meet up with these middle-aged men. I thought she was trying to find the guy that tried to kidnap her so she could deal with him and then she wouldn't have to worry about it. She could be free from her mother's overprotection. That's honest to God what I thought when I was watching the show.
For all I know, you could be Batman!
Yeah, I was really, really far off. So what actually happens is that Mouse is meeting up with middle-aged men whose daughters have gone missing in some capacity to pretend to be their daughter so that they can just like hang out and she can give them closure and she can enjoy having a dad for like a small part of the day, which like, what? This confuses me extremely. For starters, it doesn't really make any sense, but it makes even less sense when I think more about like Mouse's household that she comes from. So Mouse doesn't know her dad. Like I mentioned earlier, she comes from a lesbian household. So Mouse has two parents. Like, she still has two parents taking care of her, but she feels like she's missing out on having a dad, I guess. I guess she feels like she's missing out on the experience. They never really delve into why Mouse does this, but my assumption is that Mouse feels like left out because she doesn't have a dad, but like, I don't know. I feel like if she had a single parent household, that would make more sense, but like, Mouse is still getting the love of having like a two-parent household of people taking care of her, so I don't know. I grew up with both a mom and a dad, so like, I don't really know how this would work out if you come from a household with like two dads or two moms. Have you ever felt like you've been missing out on having the opposite gender parent in your household? Let me know. I'm genuinely curious. But like, for me watching this, it kind of reminded me of American Dad. So American Dad season 4 episode 7 follows the story of Francine becoming the surrogate for Greg and Terry, Stan and Francine's gay neighbors that are their friends. So she becomes their surrogate so that they can have a child. Stan fundamentally disagrees with this because he believes that a child cannot be raised properly in a same-sex household. He believes you have to have a wife and a husband in order to raise a child to be normal. So what happens is, After Greg and Terry's baby is born, Stan kidnaps the baby and is going to drive it across country to a different state where he can put it up for adoption, where Greg and Terry won't have any jurisdiction over their kid. And while he's on the way there, he runs into a woman who has 2 kids that are very similar to Stan's 2 kids. He's talking to her, learning about her lifestyle, seeing how her kids act, learning about her partner, and he thinks everything's cool, everything's great. Until the partner of this woman shows up, and it is another woman. Stan realizes that they're a lesbian couple raising 2 kids. And you would think that this would be the moment where Stan's like, okay, this couple raised these kids to be normal by the standards that I think kids should be raised, so maybe I'm being crazy in kidnapping this baby and taking it somewhere. But that's not what happens. Stan kidnaps the 2 kids from these ladies as well as Greg and Terry's baby and drives them all to this other state to put them up for adoption. So, as he's driving there, Stan hears the 2 kids in the back seat arguing with each other, and it reminds him of his 2 kids, Haley and Stan.
Wrong!
Excuse me, Haley and Steve. So, he then realizes that those 2 kids are normal, and despite the fact that they were raised in a same-sex household, they're perfectly fine. They don't need to have a mom and a dad because both of their moms fit the role of mom and dad and raised them normally, and he came to the conclusion of that by the end of the episode. So that is kind of what Mouse feels like to me. Like, Mouse feels like she's missing out on having a dad because they don't really explain why she feels this way. So, like, in my head, the way I took it from watching the show, Mouse is like Stan from that episode. She feels like she's missing something by not having a dad since she's being raised by 2 moms, so she meets up with middle-aged men to get the experience of having a dad. That's the best way that I can view it, so if I'm wrong and the writer said something different, well, oh well, I guess they should have made it more clear in the goddamn show. So that is the beginning of Mouse's story. Oh, you thought I was done? You thought that it was just going to be that? No. We're not even close. This story keeps going, baby. So, get ready because we got to keep on trucking forward. So, Mouse meets up with middle-aged men to hang out with them to pretend to be their daughter. And eventually, she meets a guy named Steve. And Steve is a bit much. So, Mouse has a rule. She meets up with the guys once, hangs out with them, gives them their closure that they need, and then they never meet again. But Steve can't let it go. He still wants to see Mouse. He still wants to hang out with her and act like she's his daughter. So, he keeps bothering Mouse. He starts investigating who she is, where she lives. He starts stalking Mouse. And Mouse doesn't exactly like this. So as the story progresses and Steve keeps trying to get closer and closer to Mouse, Mouse eventually hacks his software, finds out where he... I didn't mention Mouse is like really tech savvy because she's terminally online. That's kind of it. It only really comes up of importance like with this specific moment where she like hacked into this guy to find out his personal information. But so there's that. So Mouse hacks into his software and finds out his personal information. She shows up at his job and threatens to dox him if he keeps harassing her. And it's like, okay, cool. You think the story would end there. No. No. So then what happens is A forces Mouse and her mother to have a talk about the truth. And then we learn some of the most absurd storytelling that I have ever heard. So, Mouse learns the truth about the man who tried to kidnap her many years ago at the carnival. Apparently, it wasn't some stranger pedophile. It was her dad trying to spend time with her. Yes, Mouse's biological father tried to spend some time with her at the carnival, and Mouse's biological mother, Dee, called him out, called the police, and made it seem like he was trying to kidnap his own daughter. I know how stupid it sounds, but like just hang in there, all right? There's still a lot left, so just bear with me. So Mouse is hearing this story from her mother, and she's like, why did you do this? I don't understand. What was the point of you doing this? And we learn that back when Dee was in college, she just graduated, she was broke, and she had a lot of debt from being in college. And it's like, okay, cool. So she became an illegal surrogate for Mouse's dad and his partner. And I have a lot of questions here. because we don't get any of these answers, why did she become an illegal surrogate? Like, couldn't she have just become, like, a real one? Like, wouldn't that be possible? Couldn't she just become a real surrogate? I don't know how this works, because, like, you know, I'm not a woman, so, like, I can't become a surrogate for somebody, so I've never really thought about the process of, like, a woman having to go through that to become a surrogate, so, like, I don't know, but, like, can't you just become one? Because they're out there, there are surrogates, like, couldn't you just be one? And based off of the American Dad episode that I just mentioned, granted, it's a cartoon, but, like, you know, Greg and Terry agreed for Francine to be their surrogate, and they still got it done legally, like, with doctors, like, she was artificially inseminated by the two of them. So, like, couldn't, like, she have done that? Like, why? I don't understand why she had to do it illegally, because she mentions that, like, you know, she says it without, like, directly saying it, that, like, she slept with Mouse's dad to get impregnated, because she says, like, you know, they inseminated her doing it themselves, and I'm just like, that's kind of gross. I'm not gonna lie. Like, why is this oh, okay. So, you know, she says that there was a couple, Mouse's dad and his partner, they wanted to have a baby, and they hired Dee to be, you know, the surrogate. They never really explained why Mouse's dad and his wife wanted to have an illegal surrogate. Like, none of this information is given to us, and it's quite confusing, but, you know, whatever, I guess this is just what the show wants me to just take and move on. So, she gets inseminated with Mouse, and the pregnancy's going fine, and they agreed to pay her and everything, but then something happened along the course of the pregnancy, and Dee decided that she didn't want to give up Mouse. She grew a connection to her and didn't want to give her up, so she broke their contract and kept Mouse for herself and raised her on her own, which, like, they never explained, like, how she did this, because the reason why she, like, took the job to be their surrogate in the first place is because she was broke and she needed money. So, like, how did she, like, get out of that exactly? Because, you know, taking care of a kid is really expensive. So if you were already in debt and couldn't afford to live by yourself, how did you manage to, like, survive taking care of a newborn baby without a dad to back? Like, it's just, like, I know people do it, obviously, it's happened in real life, but it's just weird that they explicitly brought up the point that she was flat broke and needed money fast, and then she broke the contract that she was going to get money from, and then added more expenses onto her already big debt. So, like, how did she get out of that exactly? But, you know, again, the show doesn't want to tell me, so, I guess I should stop asking questions, right? So, continuing on, Dee decided to keep Mouse, and she raised her on her own. And eventually, you know, she met someone who is Mouse's other mother, and, you know, they became a happy family until the day of the carnival. So Mouse's dad apparently found Mouse at the carnival. He tried to spend time with her and hang out with her, but then Dee called the police and framed him for being a kidnapper. He managed to escape the cops, which, like, from my understanding, this was just, like, a normal guy. I don't know how he, like, evaded the police, especially, like, at the carnival. Like, you know, I'm not gonna think about it. So, that's what ended up happening. Now, I have a bunch more questions. Like, how did Mouse's dad and the mom never take, like, legal action? Because, like, presumably they have money, since they were going to pay Dee to be their surrogate for Mouse. So, like, Mouse is his daughter. Why did they never bring her to court? Like, because Dee never mentions that she changed her name or anything like that. So, like, why did him and his wife never bring up in court that, like, they had an agreement with each other to, like, you know, have a baby, and then she backed out on the deal, but, like, you know, you could run a DNA test. She is my daughter. I would like some form of custody over my kid. Because he clearly cares, given the fact that when he saw Mouse at the carnival, he tried to spend time with her and talk to her before Dee chased him away with the police. So, like, why did they never do anything? Like, it's so weird. They never bring up why they didn't do anything to try and get Mouse back from Dee. They just leave it at that. And on top of that, what makes it even dumber is that after Mouse learns this information, she wants to find out who her real dad is. So she breaks into somewhere. I don't really know where she broke into, but she breaks into somewhere, and she steals her birth certificate, and her dad's name is on the birth certificate. So that raises even more questions. I originally thought that, like, mid-pregnancy, Dee broke off the deal with Mouse's dad, and then had Mouse by herself, or by herself at a hospital or whatever, without him involved whatsoever. But if his name's on the birth certificate, then how can he not get custody over Mouse? Because he's legally printed as Mouse's dad. It shows that in the birth certificate. So why can him and his wife not get custody over Mouse in any way, shape, or form? Because that means he was there at the birth to sign the paperwork. So this is hurting my brain. Do you see what I'm talking about her story not making any sense? There's just no cohesion here. Nothing works. It's just So Mouse finds the birth certificate. She finds her dad's name, and then she goes to go see her dad because she wants to meet him. Now, this whole scene I'm about to bring up makes absolutely no sense. Her entire story doesn't make any sense, but this scene in particular doesn't make any sense. So Mouse finds out who her dad is, and she goes to see him. She goes there with the intention of meeting her dad, telling him who she is. But when she shows up to the house, she's disguised as a Girl Scout pretending to sell cookies? Why? You went there to talk to him, right? Why are you disguising yourself? The way Mouse is acting is as if she's his bastard child, or she's his mistress that's trying to sneak a quick one by meeting him. But no, he wanted to have you and your mother stole you away from him. Why are you hiding your identity? What's the point of doing this? But regardless, Mouse knocks on the door, and a woman and a child open the door. Now, from the context of what I heard from this story, this woman should be the woman that was originally supposed to be Mouse's mother. She's the woman that agreed with her dad to have Dee be the surrogate so that they could have a child. So, in all intents and purposes, Mouse should tell this woman who she is. And the little girl that's there is Mouse's younger sister. Because they never bring this up, they never explain it, but Mouse's dad and this woman have a child. So I'm guessing between the 15 years that Mouse's dad and this woman met with Dee and had the whole incident where, Mouse was taken away, at some point in that timeline, they ended up either getting another surrogate or managing to have a child themselves, and they have a little girl. So Mouse has a sister, but she never reacts to any of this. Based off of all the information I have, Mouse should be telling them who she is, because that's her biological sister right there, and this is the woman who was supposed to raise her, but she doesn't say anything to either of them. She just pretends to be a Girl Scout, saying that, she's here because the husband ordered cookies. And then the woman leaves and the dad shows up and is talking to Mouse, and she's she basically reveals that she's his daughter, and then he gets angry, which I'm sorry, what? Why are you angry exactly? So he gets angry at her, and he basically tells Mouse to leave and never come back. He doesn't want to see her again, and he doesn't want anything to do with her. And I'm just huh? Why is this happening? She's your daughter that was stolen away from you. She's the daughter that your wife wanted to have that was stolen away from the both of you. You have a child that is her biological sister. Why are you telling her to leave? You literally got chased away by the cops trying to meet her a few years ago. What is happening here? None of this makes any sense. So he tells Mouse to piss off, and then Mouse gets sad, and then she just leaves. And I'm like, what? Is that just it? Is that the end of the whole plot line about her dad? Are you kidding me right now? That's where this just ends? What the hell, man? And like I said, you would think that this is where it ends, right? Mouse found out the truth between, the incident with her and her mom. Her mom doesn't have to be overprotective anymore because, she had been lying the whole time and could stop this whole stupid facade. She met her dad, who, for whatever nonsensical reason, wants nothing to do with her anymore. That would seem like the end of the story, right? Right? No! We still got more to go. So, after Mouse is rejected by her dad, she gets sad, and she decides to call Steve and ask Steve to hang out with her. So the two of them start hanging out again, and then one day, Steve finds out what happened to his actual daughter, and he starts spiraling and asks Mouse to hang out with him. So when Mouse shows up to meet up with Steve at some hotel, he is completely freaked out. He's completely off the deep end. He's gone crazy. Even Mouse is getting scared at his behavior.
Rachel.
And they leave it up to interpretation that he was going to do something, but like, we don't know what Steve was going to do. We don't know if he was going to kill Mouse. We don't know if he was going to like assault her in some way. They kind of just leave it up to interpretation. They're like, oh, Steve is like spiraling right now, so like Mouse is going to get hurt, but like, how exactly? Like, what exactly is he going to do? You just kind of like, usually I would agree that less is more. Like in the case of like Bird Box, right, where the horror monsters in that are stuff you can't see. It leaves your imagination to create what kind of monster would drive these people insane. But when it comes to this, there's too little information for me to just imagine what this guy was gonna do. They're just like, oh yeah, he was gonna do something bad, and it's like what exactly? Because he's kind of just like crying in the corner right now. I don't think he has the capability of really doing anything. Also, they're at a hotel. Why didn't Mouse just like run away? Because like he's not blocking the door, stopping her from leaving. She could just run and call for help because she's at a hotel where people are. There's staff at hotels. I've worked at hotels. There's always somebody there that you can get into communication with, whether it be a security guard, the concierge, the people at the front desk. Like, somebody's always there. There's someone that could help her. So like, I don't understand why she didn't even try to run. She just doesn't. So like, okay, I guess. So then we cut back and we see Mouse's mom's and her boyfriend Ash. I think I briefly mentioned Ash earlier, but like, if I'm being honest, I'm kind of losing brain cells. I don't even remember what I recorded earlier in this part of this video. So if I didn't mention Ash earlier, I'm mentioning him now. Mouse has a trans boyfriend named Ash. He's pretty cool. I don't really have any problems with his character. He's a really chill dude. I like him. He's one of the only characters in the show that doesn't do anything that ever pisses me off. He doesn't have any weird storylines that make me want to rip my head off. He's just a cool guy. He's here. So Dee, Ash, and her other mother, who I don't know what her name is, they're like, hey, I don't know where Mouse is. Ash is like, I was supposed to meet up with Mouse, and I don't know where she is. And the mom's like, I haven't seen Mouse in like a while either. So they're all wondering what happened to her, and then Dee goes like, I actually put a tracking device on Mouse. And Ash and Mouse's other mother look at her, and she's basically just like, oh, what? Like, it's very useful in this very hyper-specific instance, so like, you should be happy that I planted a tracking device on my daughter. Which, like, yes, in this very specific instance, it's good that you did that. But the other 99.9% of the time, it's not okay. So, like, this is something we still need to address, but they just treat it like, haha, this woman put a tracking device on her daughter. So funny. We're going to move on now. And it's just like, no, I'm not okay with that. We should probably circle back to, we're not circling, okay, we're just going forward. So they use the tracking device, they find Mouse, and they show up to the hotel room where Mouse is at. And when they bust in there, they see Steve is just crying in the corner, and they see Mouse, and they ask her what the hell is going on here. And this is her response.
We were, playing pretend. Both of us. But now, the game's over.
Now, I don't have kids, but if I did, and my kid was in a precarious situation like this, and I found them and asked them what happened, and that was their response, that child would be at the pearly gates. Bro, what do you mean it was a game? That is, I'm gonna need detail. I'm gonna need 12 novels of an explanation as to what the hell you were doing in this situation and who that grown-ass man in the corner is. That is not a suffice answer to this situation. I need an explanation that satisfies my curiosity so I know how badly I should whoop your ass for this situation. Like, what the hell is happening here? But that's it. That's the end of Mouse's story. They just find her there. She's safe now. She stops hanging out with Steve. That's it. Story over. And like, What the hell? What the hell was even this? Seriously, what did I just watch? What did we just talk about here? What just happened? What is Mouse? That's right, I put her whole government in the title, so you know it's real. Tabitha Haworthe, or Tabby as most people call her in the show, is the most insufferable character in all of Original Sin with the most poorly handled storyline. Which is a shame to say because Tabby's basically just a copy of Mindy from Scream. And I like Mindy from Scream, which it's even sadder when you think about the fact that Mindy is basically just a copy of Randy. So that means Tabby is like a copy of a copied character who's written poorly, which is kind of pathetic if you have to ask me. But that aside, what makes Tabby's character so annoying? Well, it kind of boils down to two main factors. The first of which being that Tabby is a pretentious, self-righteous, obnoxious SJW. And no, I don't have a problem with Tabby being an SJW in and of itself. I have no qualms with people who go up against social injustices. Hell, I sleep under posters of Spider-Man and Cloud Strike, characters who, one is an eco-terrorist, and the other one is a vigilante who's broke and poor, yet saves everyone he possibly can, despite it negatively affecting his life. So clearly, I have no problem with people protecting and fighting social injustices. That's not the issue here. The issue is that Tabby goes about it like an annoying person on Twitter. You know the kind of person I'm talking about.
I mean, ask your doctor and he will tell you. He? Why would you assume the doctor is he? Is it because you assume a woman can't be a doctor? What is this? I have studied the martial ways of the social justice warrior. Fight me in an argument if you dare. Perish under the sword of my self-righteousness.
So that reason of itself makes Tabby really irritating to watch on screen because while I may agree with what she's saying, because of how she's explaining it, it's got me sitting there like... And I don't want to sit there like that because I'm on the same side as you. A perfect example of this is at the beginning of the series, Tabby gets into an argument with her film studies teacher. They're presented with a project where they have to pick a film from a school-approved list in order to recreate one of the scenes in their own style as the project. And Tabby notices that on the list, there's no people of color on the list. Which, yeah, that is a noticeable complaint to bring up, and it should be brought up. But instead of Tabby going about it in a constructive way by asking her teacher if she can get in contact with someone from the Board of Education, or maybe they can help her communicate with people that can change the list so more directors, more filmmakers from various different outlooks on life can be there exposing students in a class about film more to what filmmakers around the world are making. Like, that would have been perfectly fine. But that's not exactly how she goes about it. She kind of just goes about it like an annoying brat who's upset she can't do what she wants to do. And that's not the way you should go about it. And they try to make the teacher come off like an asshole here, but I will admit, I'm extremely biased in this because I both have friends who both are people of color and not people of color that are teachers and just work in the school industry as a whole. And like, they have rules that they have to follow. If the Board of Education tells them something that they have to do, then they have to do it. They can't just go, I don't particularly like that, and then not do it, because then their job is in jeopardy. So like, they make this guy very short with Tabby and kind of come off as an asshole, but also at the same time, it's like, I don't know how many years this old dude's been a teacher, but I imagine this isn't the first time someone's brought up to him the fact that this list is messed up. So, like, yeah, I can understand him being short with her, especially when she's not offering any constructive criticism to the situation. She doesn't ask him if they can go and change the list with anyone who has the ability to do so. She just kind of goes like, you know, it's kind of weird that you don't have any black people on this list of filmmakers, Mr. Smithy, my old white man teacher. And it's like, okay, all right, calm down. Granted, she doesn't go nearly as far as I said, but like, it's like, relax, okay? Like, yes, no one's disagreeing with you, the list is wrong, but like, he says it himself, it's a school-sanctioned list. If the school dictated that this is the list that he's allowed to give to his students, that is what he has to do. So like, I don't know, like I said, I'm a bit biased in this situation, but I completely understand where he's coming from, and although Tabby is in the right, she's not doing anything to accentuate or fix this problem in a constructive way, which just makes her annoying because she's just now complaining. And it's like, well, you can complain as much as you want, but complaining isn't going to fix the problem in and of itself. But I will give credit where credit is due. Tabby does have one cool moment where her being this kind of character does actually pay off satisfyingly. And that's when Tabby punches Tyler in the face during the Halloween episode. Tyler is a misogynist jock asshole that was harassing Tabby and her friends at the Halloween party that they threw, and she punches him in the face for it. And I thought that was pretty cool. That is the one time I thought Tabby was fine as a character. I'll give you 1 point, show. You did something good for once. But moving on to the second issue with Tabby's character, that being the fact that she regurgitates film references. And not like she keeps referencing films in like a normal way that might seem cool. No, Tabby just name drops the titles of films whenever the situation is vaguely similar to what it is.
We made a pact, like the Losers Club. Mine is an Amityville level of weird, right? Like I'm getting some serious poltergeist vibes right now. Fincher, Zodiac. Don't.
Now, I'm not going to put like every single one in here because that would be absurd. There's so many moments because almost all of her dialogue in the show is comprised of film references. Hell, there's even points where some of her text messages are film references. But that is besides the point. The point is, this is a huge problem that many people have had with the show, but if I'm being honest, that didn't really bother me as much. Her name dropping all of these films, yeah, it can get grating and annoying, but it wasn't enough to make me annoyed with her character. What made me annoyed with her character is that when she drops these references, it feels like she has no social awareness. Because there's multiple times in the show where she'll bring up a film reference or name drop a film as a reference, and it's in a situation that doesn't warrant that. Like, it's a serious situation where it's not the time to be making these references. A perfect example of this is Imogen gets invited to Karen Beasley's funeral by her sister Kelly, because the three of them all used to be friends prior to Karen's death earlier on in the season. So when Imogen goes to the funeral, Karen and Kelly's mother sees her and immediately loses her mind. She damns Imogen and her unborn baby to a wretched fate, and this was obviously terrifying and traumatizing for Imogen. So she goes to talk to her friends about it, and this is the first thing out of Tabby's mouth.
Like Pet Sematary awful. Forget Pet Sematary, that's some Hereditary level shit.
Like, bro, now is not the time to be making film references. Like, imagine if you called one of your loved ones because your uncle got shot and the first thing out of their mouth was, "Damn, cuz they domed your uncle like Ben." Like, bro, I'd suplex you. So, like, my problem isn't that Tabby makes these references, it's when and how she makes these references, because that is clearly not the time. Another time that he did it, where they almost did it right, was the episode where Imogen has a full mental breakdown because she believes she's completely alone after her mother took her own life, and all of her friends are there to comfort her and say like, "Hey, no girl, we got your back, we're your friends, you're not alone." And this is what Tabby says.
You quote Chucky. Friends till the end.
Like, that was almost perfect, but they had to treat me like a child. They acted like I've never seen Chucky before, and they're like, "Oh, hey, yeah, this specific line is from the movie Chucky. If you didn't know that the line, friends till the end, is from the movie franchise, Chucky." Like, I didn't need you to do that. Tabby could have just said, "They'll be friends till the end," and then moved on with it. That would have been fine, because people who've seen Chucky would notice that it's a reference from Chucky and then attribute it to the fact that Tabby is a film nerd. And they go, "Oh, okay." It would make you more endearing to Tabby. You'd be like, "Oh, okay, she's using that specific line to become closer to Imogen," but also we as the audience know that's a film reference because she's a film nerd and she likes to use film references. That works perfectly fine. They did this really well in the movie Scott Pilgrim.
Dude, I'm totally waiting on you.
At the time that I saw that movie and I heard that line, I didn't think anything of it. But apparently, it is a reference to a game that I've never played, which I think is awesome. That's a cool bit of knowledge to know about the show, and people who played that game who picked up on that reference probably really connected and resonated with them. So, like, they could just do that with Tabby, but they don't. They make her annoying instead. And don't get me started on how she can be really freaking annoying. She can be that freaking high and mighty film nerd that likes to correct you when you mess something up.
Actually, it's Kiki Mama, as in when Mrs. Voorhees says Killer Mommy in Jason's voice.
Don't do that. Don't be this person. Don't Don't ever do that. That's super frustrating, and nobody likes this person. But I know, some of you are probably sitting there like, Cameron, these are just surface level complaints. Like, I actually like all of these personality traits about Tabby. I find her my favorite character in the show. I completely disagree with you on that. And you know what? That's fine. That's perfectly reasonable. I can understand why you would have a problem with anything I just said, because you disagree with me. But something I will not allow you to disagree with me on is that her storyline is written like garbage. Now, before I get into Tabby's storyline, I will put this disclaimer here. Tabby's storyline does deal with a lot of uncomfortable topics like grooming and sexual assault, so like if that's something that bothers you, you can skip ahead to the next section of the video. I completely understand that. But if you're someone who can handle that kind of thing, great. We're moving on. So, Tabby's storyline initially starts off with her being groomed by her manager at work, Wes. And for context's sake, Wes is somewhere in his 20s. They never give you an exact age, but he mentions that he went to college at like NYU, so if he recently graduated, that means he's at minimum like 22 years old, because that's a 4-year college. So Tabby's 16, very uncomfortable. There are children screaming outside my window. I'm gonna leave this in the video, but where was I? Right, yeah. So Tabby's 16 and Wes is like 20-something years old, which is extremely uncomfortable no matter what way you slice it. So Wes constantly tries to get Tabby to go on a date with him because he wants to hook up with her. And Tabby, being the kind of character that she is, would noticeably have a problem with this. She's visibly uncomfortable whenever Wes tries to make an advance against her. And the reason why I bring this up is because it never goes anywhere. Nothing ever happens to Wes in the show after he does this. There's even a point where he steals something of Tabby's and says he'll give it back to her only if she shows up to his apartment to have like a dinner date with him. And it's like, bro, what the hell, man? There's millions of women in the world. Find somebody else that's your age or slightly older. Chill. So it's weird to me that Tabby doesn't do anything about this. Because after that happens, they kind of just completely drop that storyline, and her and Wes are just chill. He's just her friend / manager at the movie theater, and that's kind of just it. They don't really do anything else with the fact that he tried to hook up with her. And I'm just like, why? Tabby's the kind of person who hates this kind of stuff. Why would she just let it slide when she actively doesn't let it slide in any other circumstance? As I mentioned earlier, she literally punched somebody in the face for being a misogynist and sexually harassing her and her friends. So, like, why didn't she do anything when her boss did it? Like, it just doesn't make any sense, because she's not the kind of person that would just let that kind of thing slide, and they never address it. So there's never really an explanation as to why she does it, and it's incredibly frustrating. So it's the beginning of Tabby's storyline. But then we get into the true meat and potatoes of Tabby's story, which before I really delve into that, there's one thing that always bothered me that they never really explain, and that's Tabby's hallucinations. So the show implies that Tabby's hallucinations started because Tabby was assaulted. In the previous summer, before the show started, Tabby was assaulted at a high school party. And the show like alludes to the fact that her hallucinations started because of a form of PTSD that she got from that tragic incident. But it doesn't really line up properly, because Tabby's hallucinations start in like the middle of the show, which is months after that happened to her. So like this happened in the summer. So like let's say latest it could possibly happen is August, right? So like if it happened in August, this show starts in October, so that's a few months away. Why did her hallucinations from this traumatic experience start so late? Now, obviously, I'm not a therapist or a psychologist, so I don't know how this stuff works, and thank God, you know, I personally do not have any, like, mental health issues, so, like, I haven't experienced anything like this before. But it's just weird to me in, like, the context of a show that when Tabby's first depicted to us in the first few episodes of the show, she's perfectly fine. She's 100% normal. Then there's no like nervous tics or anything with her noticeably having these kinds of hallucinations. But then like partway through the show, all of a sudden she starts having these like vivid hallucinations where she completely blacks out from anything that's happening in reality. Like, there's multiple times where characters are talking to her, and they're like, yo, are you here? Like, did you hear anything that I was just saying? And she's like, sorry, yeah, I just wasn't paying attention. And it's like, okay, that's weird. And some of these hallucinations she has involves A, and I know this is going to sound dumb for those of you that have seen the show and know who the killer is, but when I originally saw these hallucinations, I thought that maybe it was going to be like a schizophrenia thing, like something akin to Moon Knight, where Tabby has a split personality that is A, and she would end up being the bad guy at the end of the show, because that was the only reason I could like equate her to having these hallucinations about A. So, obviously that turned out not to be true, but it's what I thought when I was originally watching the show. So yeah, I figured I would bring that up because it was always really weird to me that they just kind of start and like using characters as an example that like have these kind of problems with like multiple personalities or like hallucinations. Like usually they establish that it's either been going on for a while or we see what happened to the character throughout the course of their journey that resulted in them starting when they did. Like with Moon Knight, it's established at the beginning of the show that clearly there's something off with his character that results in him doing all these precautionary things to kind of manage and mitigate what he can do that can harm himself or others, because at the time when we start the show, we don't know that he has multiple personalities, one of which being a superhero. And then in regards to a character like Samurai Jack, we see his entire life's journey and see how he's been beaten down and traumatized over and over again, resulting in him gaining a hallucination in the final season of the show. And like that makes sense. You can see the through line that led up to it. But with Tabby's character, we kind of like start in the middle of her story. So like the traumatic things already happened, but then we don't really see any ramifications of that when we first meet her. And then it starts later on. And you would think it's like, okay, well, shouldn't something have like happened from when we started following her story that triggered it to happen now, given it's like months after the initial incident? I don't know. That's just me personally, but like it's something that always bothered me and I really needed to bring it up. But moving on with Tabby's story. So Tabby's story follows the fact that she was assaulted. But it doesn't just follow the fact that she was assaulted. It also follows the fact that Imogen was assaulted as well. Yes, that is right. I mentioned I would bring this up earlier when it became relevant to the character that is connected to their storyline, but Imogen's other plot line has to do with the fact that she was also assaulted the same summer vacation that Tabby was assaulted, and that's how she got pregnant. And here's the thing. This in and of itself is not a problem. This plot line isn't an issue. It's something that could be handled well and become an interesting story to follow. The problem with it is that it's not handled well in any way, shape, or form. And you can tell that specifically with the fact that Imogen and Tabby were assaulted by the same exact guy. Because when you break down the how, when, why, and all that kind of stuff of what went on with that, it doesn't make any sense. Because both Imogen and Tabby got attacked on different nights in vastly different locations. Tabby was at a high school party in the forest. She got drunk and blacked out in the forest, and that's when she got attacked. Imogen, on the other hand, got attacked at a beach alone in the middle of the night after she left a party that took place in the suburbs, which means she went from the suburbs miles away to a beach by herself where no one was there. So, in Tabby's instance, where she believes that someone from their school attacked her, it makes sense because she blacked out at a party in the forest. But Imogen left the party, went miles away to a secluded beach, and then was attacked. Literally anyone could be the person that attacked her, but the show decides that it was actually the same guy, and the same guy goes to their high school. And it's just kind of like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that doesn't... How? And how would they come to this conclusion exactly? What made them think this way? Absolutely nothing. I wish I was joking. The show tries to make it seem like they came to this conclusion because they were both like, oh, we were both at high school parties before we got attacked, So it makes sense. But as I just mentioned, Imogen left the party that she was at and walked miles away from where it took place before she got attacked. So the through line that, yeah, it must have been someone that was at a high school party doesn't make any sense because Imogen wasn't anywhere near said party when she got attacked, which makes me feel like they came up with a storyline about Imogen being 16 and pregnant and it being about someone attacking her, and then they also came up with a storyline about Tabby being attacked, and then they just went, hey, you know what would be a cool twist? If they were attacked by the same guy. But the stories were not conceived to be that way from inception, which really messes up how both of them ends. And it's just like, you can't really do that with this kind of story. You need to plan out how it goes because of how sensitive the issue is that you're addressing. But the two of them, because they had got plot clairvoyance, just guess that they were both attacked by the same guy, and they were right. They were both attacked by the same guy. So a bunch of nonsense happens after this with them stealing DNA from the school. Essentially, there's a blood drive happening at the school. They steal a bunch of bloody cotton swabs and stuff from every guy that goes to the blood drive. They steal a bunch of DNA from the boys' locker room because apparently the football team didn't want anything to do with the blood drive because they were afraid that their blood would get tested and they get outed for being on steroids. It's just really stupid. The bottom line is they steal a bunch of DNA from all the boys at the school and they test it against Imogen's unborn baby, which like I don't know if that works. I don't know if you can do that. I don't know if you can like get a DNA test against an unborn baby, but whatever. They do, and one of the matches pings and they're like, okay, so that means that the guy that attacked both Imogen and Tabby has to go to the school. And then Tabby comes to the conclusion that it was her best friend Chip, based off of something her mother told her.
9 times out of 10, it's someone you know.
I don't know if this statistic is real, but if it is, well, then I guess good on the show for actually using a real-life statistic in this horribly written storyline. Now the problem is, they don't have any proof that Chip did what he did. Sure, they can test his DNA against the baby, but that would just come to the conclusion that Chip and Imogen slept with each other at least one time that got her pregnant. But that's not incriminating evidence that he attacked her. So, okay, fine, I get it. You guys need some sort of confession or evidence that proves that he did what he did. And then we get dropped information that literally goes absolutely nowhere. We're told that Imogen's panties were stolen the night that she was attacked. And it's just kind of like, this kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't know this was a thing, but I guess it is now. And it absolutely goes nowhere. They never find the panties, and they never bring it up to Chip, and it doesn't make any sense because they say that Chip probably stole the panties as some sort of memento for the crime that he committed. But Tabby's weren't stolen. So if Chip was like a ritualistic kind of criminal who took mementos from all of his crime scenes, then wouldn't he have stolen Tabby's as well? Like, that doesn't really make sense to me. Like, it's like a problem they have with Chip's character that I'll get into later, but like they can't decide what kind of criminal they want him to be because it doesn't fit into either of the storylines properly. It's like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit into a spot. So they decide that they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to go to Chip's house and we're going to see if Imogen's panties are there. So they sneak into Chip's house and they start searching his place. And as I mentioned, they never find the panties and it just never comes up again whatsoever. We never learn what happened to Imogen's panties. They're just missing and we're just supposed to forget about it because I guess it wasn't important, even though they brought it up like it was supposed to be this smoking gun to prove that Chip did what he did. But sure, whatever, fine, I'll forget about it. We're going to keep going. So while they're in Chip's place, they find a box of horror films that, according to Tabby, all depict a violent graphic scene of sexual assault. And this is the reason that they say Chip did everything that he did. That he was influenced negatively by these movies, and that's what turned him into a crazed criminal. Now, we're going to pause here for a second, and I'm going to get real, okay? I have a problem with this. Like, not as a, like, aha, jokey thing, like, this show's stupid, and, like, I'm criticizing it the way I've been doing so for, like, the past, like, almost 2 hours now, but this bothers me on, like, a legitimate personal level. So, my entire life, I have been a nerd. I've been into multiple different kinds of mediums between video games, books, comics, manga, anime, animation in general, film, you name it. I love all kinds of nerd media, and I've been this way ever since I was in like elementary school. Hell, even younger, when I had like a little Game Boy. And the reason this bothers me is because time and time again throughout my entire life growing up, I have seen multiple people try to bring up the argument that violent media negatively turns someone into a evil person. That playing Call of Duty will make you want to shoot somebody. That playing fighting games will make you want to get into fights in real life. That sexualized characters and things are going to give you a warped idea of what women and men are supposed to look like. Like, it's really stupid. And it's been debunked time after time after time after time after time because it's a stupid philosophy. So many people throughout the world are exposed to vast different kinds of media, and it doesn't turn them into crazy people. Like, are you trying to tell me that every person that's a fan of the Saw franchise has a potential of becoming Jigsaw? Like, really? Does that sound like it makes sense? Because there's tons of teenagers and young adults that watch all of those movies, and none of them are crazed killers like he is. So the concept that violent media turns you evil is stupid. And the idea that this is the reason that they're saying Chip did the horrible things that he did is incredibly pathetic to me. Like, are you kidding me right now? And what doesn't make sense to me is that the guy who made this show, Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa, is someone who makes violent media. 2 of the last 3 shows he made before making Original Sin were extremely violent. Those 2 shows being Riverdale and The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. The 2 shows I just mentioned, collectively and individually, mind you, now that I'm thinking about it, all deal with these multiple different things. Cults, serial killings, murder in general, child pornography, the devil. I don't even think I really need to continue anymore after those 5 things. All of those things are in those 2 shows. And that is extremely violent, messed up stuff. And Roberto's demographic for his shows is typically teenagers to people in their early 20s. So are you trying to tell me that you make violent shows to influence these young people into turning evil? Because I don't think you do. So I don't exactly understand why you would approve to put in your show a character who turned evil because they were exposed to violent films, especially being a filmmaker yourself. Like, doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever, let alone the fact that it's incredibly hypocritical because Tabby is a massive horror movie fan. She wants to be a horror movie director. She loves horror movies more than Chip does. So why is Tabby a normal person, but Chip turned into an evil sexual assaulter? What's the difference between the 2 characters? They're both people who are the same exact age that have a crazy affinity for horror films. So why did Chip become an evil psycho criminal, but Tabby didn't? By your logic, watching violent media negatively affects someone, turning them evil. So why did it happen to Chip, but not Tabby? It's ridiculously hypocritical, and the whole thesis of this argument is ridiculously stupid, and I do not like it, and they should not have put it in this show. Seriousness aside, going back to more criticisms of the show, they find this box and they go, okay, yeah, these violent movies are what influenced Chip to do the horrible things that he did, so we're going to bring this up to Chip, and that's where we're going to go from here. They never actually bring up what they found inside of his place, from what I remember. They just kind of confront him about what he did to them. So, like, them finding that box ended up not mattering at all whatsoever. So, they just show up to the movie theater while Chip is on duty, and they ask him to tell them what he did to them. And originally, which again, for the umpteenth time at this point, for those of you that have seen the show, this is going to sound incredibly stupid, but when I originally watched it, I thought that Imogen and Tabby had some sort of recording device on them to capture Chip telling them what he did so they could use it to get him arrested. That's what I thought was going to happen. That was the most logical thing in my mind that would happen. But what ends up happening is that they just went there with no recording devices, no cameras, nothing to capture his confession, and they're just like, we know what you did to us. And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry, like, I know what I did was messed up, but I didn't do it to anyone else, and I'll never do it again. I'm really sorry, you two. And it's just like, okay, that was easy. So after that happens, that's kind of it. And it's like they said they're going to arrest Chip, but then A just shows up out of nowhere, and it's just like, why is he here? Like, this man who has been meticulous about staying in the shadows so that no one knows who he is just appeared here in a public place with a person who doesn't know he exists, that being Chip, and the two people he's tormenting. And I'm just like, what? Why are you here now? They never explained why he showed up there. Like, he just shows up there, and I'm just like, what? Why did you just reveal yourself here? What is the point of this? And then the point revealed itself to me. It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense, but A just shows up, Chip gets scared, and then Imogen and Tabby tell A that Chip hurt them. And then A chases Chip down to go and murder him. And that's the end of the storyline.
You serious?
I'm not kidding. I wish I was. That is the end of the storyline. Granted, I'm skipping ahead to the end of the final episode of the show, but A brutally stabs Chip to death in front of his parents on Christmas. So that's the end of the storyline. Imogen and Tabby sent the serial killer, the known serial killer that they have been interacting with the entire season, to go murder Chip, who is 16 years old. He's a minor. Now listen, before anyone starts to get mad, I do not care that Chip died. Not at all. My problem isn't that Chip dies whatsoever. He deserved it. He was a horrible piece of garbage. I don't care that he died. Criminals don't even care that people like him die. They typically kill them when they go to jail. So, my problem isn't that he dies. My problem is the fact that Imogen and Tabby are the ones who sent him to die. They told a notorious serial killer, to go and kill him. That I cannot let slide, because this show doesn't take into account any sort of mental ramifications of murdering somebody. Yes, they murdered Chip, because although they didn't physically stab the boy to death, they sent someone to kill them. If you send a killer to kill someone, you are just as responsible about that person's death as they are. So, this show does absolutely nothing with that. Imogen and Tabby just move on with their lives like nothing happened. They don't care that they sent a serial killer to murder Chip. And no, I'm sorry, I can't let this slide, because the entire thesis and message of this show is that bullying is wrong. That is it. It beats you over the head with it every single goddamn episode. Bullying is wrong. That is the message of this show. Everything that has happened in this show is a direct result of bullying in some capacity. A's existence, bullying. The mother's dark secret, bullying. The reason the girls are being attacked by A and dealing with everything that they're dealing with in the show, bullying. Bullying, bullying, bullying. This whole show is about bullying, and it's telling you that bullying is wrong. So the idea that these characters tell a killer to go murder someone, no. You can't do that. This isn't like an action movie where, like, doing that is like, okay, yeah, no, I don't care. Like, John Wick murdering, like, entire cities worth of people, I don't care, man. Why? Because it's an action movie. It's fine. I expect John Wick to kill people, and I've come to the conclusion that John Wick is the kind of person who kills people. These are just normal teenage girls. Them sending a serial killer to murder someone because they hate him is not justifiable, and the fact that they have no thoughts after this is ridiculous. And you want to know why I know this 100% certainty? It's because there is a show that handled this significantly better than original Sin did in the exact same format, that show being The Sopranos. For episode of The Sopranos titled Employee of the Month, Tony Soprano's therapist, Dr. Jennifer Melfi, gets attacked in the same way that Imogen and Tabby were on her way home from work. And she calls the police. They're able to catch the guy that did it relatively quickly. However, something ends up happening during the processing after they arrested him that results in the police having to let him go. And you can't arrest someone for the same exact crime you arrested them for multiple times, so there's nothing they can do. The guy's scot-free until he commits another crime. And the episode deals with the trauma and mental ramifications of everything that's happened to her, between Melfi being attacked and her dealing with the fact that the guy gets off scot-free. And then, during the episode, she starts contemplating whether or not she should ask Tony to kill this guy. And the reason for this is because at this point in the show, Melfi is self-aware that Tony is a gangster. She knows what he does. She's pieced it together. So she's contemplating if she should just have Tony kill the guy for her to get some sort of closure and revenge. And she goes back and forth on this throughout the whole episode until eventually she decides that she doesn't want to do it. She doesn't want to become a monster like that guy. She doesn't want to become a monster like Tony. She decides that although she wants this guy to be taken down, she refuses to stoop to their level, to become that level of monster, and she just lets it go. And the episode ends on this really somber moment, knowing that, like, she's going to have to deal with this trauma the rest of her life, but you know, in some sense, she's made the right decision because she would feel horrible if she did this. And honestly, I think they could have gone either way with it. I would have been fine if she told Tony to kill the guy. I think they could have handled it very well. Or if they continued with what they actually did and she doesn't tell Tony to kill the guy. I think either way they could have handled it well because this episode was extremely nuanced. It handled the subject matter in a very tactful and serious way because they knew what it meant to people that have gone through this experience. The people in the past that have gone through it, the people that were probably going through it at the time the episode was released, and the people that have gone through it since the episode released. They knew how important it was to get that episode right. So it's one of the best episodes of the entire series of The Sopranos, and I absolutely loved it. I was genuinely speechless when I saw that episode for the first time because it was so well done. And the reason I bring this up is because, like I said, it has direct parallels to everything that happens in Original Sin. Tabby and Imogen were both attacked in the same exact way that Melfi was. Tabby and Imogen are presented with the same exact quandary that Melfi was. Should they tell this person they know will kill the person that they hate? Should they do it? Should they tell them to do it? Should they not tell them to do it? And in Original Sin, they tell them to do it, but they never explore the emotional ramifications of doing so. Melfi, they show us how she's going through this. They show us explicitly everything that she's went through to make us feel everything that happened to her and show us how difficult this decision is and to let us know she's still going to be dealing with it afterwards. Imogen and Tabby is the complete exact opposite. They tell someone to go murder somebody and then they go and like get ice cream. Not literally, but like that's basically what happens. They just like hang out and they're happy and their lives are just normal after the fact. Like there's no ramifications or thought process or trauma that they're dealing with after they send someone to go murder somebody. And that is my problem with this. These characters can't make a decision this severe without any sort of problem happening afterwards. They can't just decide this because again, these girls aren't John Wick. They aren't killers that kill people on a regular basis. They are normal 16-year-olds who have been tormented by a serial killer for a few months. They should not make a decision like this and then just forget about it and just move on with their lives like nothing went wrong. That is incredibly terrible, abysmal writing, and I cannot accept it. I do not understand how you can decide to write such a horrible storyline based off of something so serious that so many people have gone through, whether it be in the past, present, or unfortunately in the future. How could you write something like this, especially knowing that your audience for this show are teenagers and 20-year-olds? These are young, impressionable people. How could you make something like this knowing that there's a possibility that there are people in that demographic that have experienced this or are currently experiencing this? Like, how could you not plan this out meticulously to make sure that this storyline was one of the best episodes that you've ever written in your entire life? I cannot comprehend how you could write this kind of story in such an incoherent mess. It's just horrible. And that's just the end of their story. That's just the end. There's nothing further that continues about it in this season. Once they tell A to go kill Chip, and that's it. Yeah. A just kills him in the last episode after they sent them after him, after like all the stuff happens, and that's it. That's where the storyline ends. They never talk about it again. It's over. That's where it ends for the first season of the show. And I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss. I don't know what else to say about how horribly this plot line was handled. It's incredibly stupid to me, and I fundamentally can't believe that this got off the cutting room floor. That someone wrote it, someone filmed it, edited it, checked it, and they were like, yeah, perfectly fine. This isn't going to be bad in any way, shape, or form. it's just absolutely insane to me. So yeah, Tabby, awful character, awful storyline. Nothing about her in this season is redeemable in my eyes. Garbage. So last section of the video was a bit heavy, but we're going to lighten things up by talking about a serial killer. So I decided to put A and the finale episode in one section because they're intrinsically connected to each other, and if not, there isn't really that much to tell you about A separate from the finale, so I figured it would work out better this way. So, starting with the finale, and I'll get into A as we progress. The girls broke one of A's rules. Faran told Kelly the truth about A and what happened to her sister Karen. So that resulted in A being like, okay, they broke the rules, now I'm going to go on an unhinged rampage. So A kidnaps all of the girls' moms, as well as all of their bullies, and then beckons the girls to the school for one final challenge, he says, which, like, he hasn't really been testing them. So, like, I don't know what he means by one final challenge. Like, you haven't told them to do anything in the first place, but whatever. So all of the girls band together, and they go into the school for A's test. Now, they're all summoned into individual rooms separate from one another to face off against their bullies. And A basically wants them to kill all of their bullies for the horrible things that they did to them. And all of the girls decide they can't do it. Imogen is a little bit different, though, because Imogen's bully was her mom, who's dead. So A defaced her grave and dug up her corpse and then left her mom's dead corpse inside of a room, which, like, that room must have smelled rancid because her mom died months ago. Like, I'm sorry. I know that's not what I should have been thinking about in the scene, but it's something that appeared in my mind when I saw it. I was like, all of the girls see their bullies. They're offered with the ability to kill them. Noah is given the option to, like, overdose her mom's drug dealer. Tabby is given the ability to stab Chip to death. Faran, I don't remember exactly what it was that Faran was offered to kill the racist ballerina teacher, but, like, it was something. And, like, that's basically what it was. They were all offered, like, a specific way to kill all of their bullies. And then they're all like, yeah, nah, I can't do this. And then they leave. The point is, they all decided that they can't go through with it. They're like, yeah, no, I can't kill them, even if it means, like, saving my mom. So A then messages all of them, and he's like, congratulations, you didn't kill those people. Come to the gymnasium for the final part of the challenge. And it's like, okay, so they weren't supposed to kill them? So, like, so this was actually a test. Like, if they killed those people, you would have just immediately killed their moms. But, like, you also are still going to kill their moms anyway. So, like, what was the point of this test? Like, was this to decide if you were going to kill them too? So now that they passed, they get to live, but, like, you're going to kill their moms afterwards? Like, I don't really understand what the whole point of this was, but whatever. So they go to the gymnasium, and it's finally revealed to us after 10 hours of this show almost 10 hours of the show, who the big bad is, who A is. And we learn that it's the principal of their school and a guy that we've basically never heard anything about. We are originally led to believe that A is one guy, the Michael Myers looking ass guy. But he's just one of the two members of A. A is a father-son duo, that being Angela Waters' father and her brother Archie. Yes, A's name is Archie. That's why he's called A. I know it sounds like, okay, yeah, what's the problem with that? But if you know Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa, he has, like, an obsession with Archie Comics, and I think he's currently, like, in charge of, like, the Archie Comics studio. And obviously he made the show Riverdale and The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which all take place within the same universe. So, like, you know, the fact that he named the killer Archie is just a little bit funny with that context in mind. So, you know, we meet Archie and his dad, and they're like, yeah, we're the people that have been tormenting you and kidnapped everybody. And then we get the reveal as to what happened, and we learn that they just want revenge. That's it. Their moms bullied their daughter and sister to death, so they want revenge against them. That's it. There isn't really much to say about A that I haven't mentioned already. That's what they did. We don't get a breakdown of how they did everything they did in the show, but, you know, I guess, you know, figuring out how the criminal did his crime isn't interesting. It's not like, you know, there's a whole, you know, franchise of movies based off of stuff like that, but, you know, whatever. So they're like, yeah, we did all the stuff, and now we revealed who we are, and we're gonna kill your moms, and Imogen, you're gonna die now too, because your mom took her own life, so that means that you have to die for her sins. And I'm just like, okay, hold on a second. I know I briefly brought this up earlier, but like, what exactly is your plan here? So like, you tested these girls to see if they would kill their bullies, and they didn't. So does that mean you're gonna let them go, but still kill their moms? And Imogen is innocent here. Her mom's the one that did the bad thing, and her mom took her own life out of guilt for what she did to your daughter and sister. So like, why does Imogen have to die when her mom already died for the same reason you would have killed her for in the first place? Like, this seems ridiculously petty, especially because they bring up in this, they're like, Imogen's like, wait, I'm pregnant, I have an unborn child that's completely innocent. And A just completely scraps his entire ideology about only killing bad people, and he's like,
for your baby's sake, we'll give you a head start.
Bro, what? So, originally, for hopefully the last time that I will say this in this video, I know if you've seen the show, it's going to sound stupid that I'm going to say this, but originally, I thought that A locked down the school and that Imogen was going to play this sick and twisted game of hide and seek while A was chasing her throughout the school, and that would have been really tense and cool, and the school has like this nice cool lighting in the hallways and everything. I thought it would have been sick if they would have done that, but no. Thankfully, I did get that fix when I watched an anime called Dark Gathering, in which they got hunted by like a ghost serial killer inside of a school, and it was really terrifying and creepy. And why am I not talking about that show instead of talking about this piece of garbage? But anyway, so Imogen runs away and she leaves the school, and I was like, oh, the school's not locked down to make sure that they don't get away and, like, I don't know, find people to protect them, like the police. And any sane normal person would go to a public area or the police, or like knock on a door to get someone's attention, to call the police to help them. But no! Imogen's too next level for that. She has a flashback that her mom once told her that their home is her safe place. So she goes to her abandoned house to hide from the like 6'8" serial killer that moves like Michael Myers. And I'm like, was that really a good idea? And I should also mention that during this chase sequence, Imogen is having contractions because her water broke the minute A started chasing her, and she's in the process of giving birth. And it's like, okay, so like, how's this gonna work? Cause like, giving birth is not like an easy thing you could just like, nah, I got it, I'm gonna keep running, bro. Like, it don't work that way, fam. Like, so how is she gonna deal with this exactly? So it's like, all right, bro, whatever. She goes to her abandoned house. She tries hiding from A, and then the dumbest thing happens. Listen, I understand it happens in horror movies all the time, right? Because like Halloween and Scream have done it, and they're like awesome horror movie franchises. But I'm sorry, fam. I cannot buy that a 16-year-old girl who is in the process of giving birth to a child she's carried for 9 months straight can 1v1 a Michael Myers-esque serial killer. I don't care that Sidney Prescott did it. I don't care that Jenna Ortega did it. I don't care that Laurie Strode did it. I don't care that they did this, okay? I don't believe that Imogen Adams could 1v1 a frickin' Archie the murderer himself while giving birth to a baby. I'm sorry, you have broken my suspension of disbelief, because she wins the fight, mind you. Yeah, they kind of double KO each other, but she still won the fight. I can't believe that she could win this fight without prep time. Even Laurie Strode has prep time to fight Michael Myers. That's all of what like one of the most recent Halloween movies was about. So like, nah fam, I can't believe this. So yeah, that's how A is defeated. Well, Archie A is defeated. Principal A gets defeated like this.
Oh, he got his. Holy shit, Kelly. Somebody help! Please come help!
No, no, I did not edit that scene. That's just how it happens. Yeah, that's how everything gets wrapped up. So that's the end of the story. Both A's were taken down and captured. They were arrested. Imogen gives birth to her baby, in which she mentions that the baby's going to be adopted by the main character of the original Pretty Little Liars series, which apparently a lot of fans had a problem with because the relationship between Arya and her husband Ezra was really uncomfortable because he was apparently her English teacher that groomed her. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't see the original Pretty Little Liars. I just know the context clues from it. So, like, yeah, a lot of fans who were fans of the original series who didn't like that relationship, didn't like the fact that Imogen's baby was going to be adopted by them. So, you know, I get why they did the callback, and they were like, yeah, the main character of the original series is going to take care of the child of the main character from this series. Like, I think that's pretty cool, but, you know, I get it. People have problems with their relationship, so, like, it made them uncomfortable. So, like, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong for that, but, like, as someone who hasn't watched the original show, it didn't really bother me all that much. And then, you know, A breaks out of police custody and then goes and murders Chip, and that's the last shot of the show. And then, boom, title card. Pretty Little Liars Original Sin. That's the end of the season. Yeah, I don't know, bruv. This show is ass. Is hot booty batter butt cheeks ass. Like, this show is damn. Hold it. Alright, so I've been pretty negative this entire video, but I figured I would try and end this video off on something more positive, and that's why I wanted to talk about this. I think Original Sin actually had, like, a lot of potential to be a really great show. I think it should have probably been, like, a mini-series, like a one-off season as well, but, like, the reason I think it could have worked significantly well is not because of something that, like, I mean, like, oh, if they did this differently, then it would have been better. No, it's stuff that's in the show already that I think if they focused on that instead of the actual main characters of the show, it would have been better. And that's if they would have focused on the moms. You see, the moms in this show have these flashback sequences that show them as teenagers, and it shows us what happened between them and Angela Waters, and honestly, those are some of the best scenes of the show. The opening scene of the show where Angela shows up disheveled to the New Year's party and takes her own life, that is the best scene in the entire show, and seeing that and all the flashback scenes of the moms just made me think, like, why wasn't the show just set in, like, the year 2000 and followed them? Because, like, you recorded these scenes, you had the actresses, you had the sets, like, you could have just made the show then and followed them, and then all of my problems that I've complained about throughout this entire show completely disappear. Because if you follow the teenage versions of the moms, then the problem that all of the girls have no connection to what's going on in the show is completely gone. Because the moms are the reason that Angela died, so A would have a direct threat and want to kill them because of that. That makes perfect sense. All of the moms would be actively trying to hide their secret about all the things they did to Angela so that the cops and A don't target them, which makes perfect sense because it would ruin their reputations and potentially end them all up in jail. So I think that would work perfectly. Then me following whatever mundane things they're doing in their life adds a bit of sauce to it because it's like, yeah, whatever they're doing between like hanging out with boyfriends, being part of clubs, like, you know, at the drop of the dime, if someone reveals the information about what they did, it will destroy everything. It would keep me intrigued. Any like romantic interest they pick up, it's like, ooh, okay, yeah, they're getting close and everything, but like they don't know that they were a part of this girl's death, and when they find out, that's gonna be a big problem. Oh, I wonder what's gonna happen. Like, it would keep me invested and interested in the show, and then seeing what they did to Angela with those flashbacks would have brought more intrigue, and you could juxtapose that with A coming after all of the girls throughout the course of the series. I think that would have worked really well. So like, I don't exactly understand why they decided to have this 20-year time jump and follow a completely different cast of characters. Like, it just doesn't really make sense to me. And it's a shame, because I really did like the actresses who played the teenage versions of the mom. I think they all did a really good job. And I think that all of the moms are significantly more interesting characters than the daughters themselves. Because the daughters are kind of milquetoast in comparison to what their teenage moms were. Like, the moms were, like, sassy. They had, like, conflict amongst their friend group. And all of them had distinct character traits that made them interesting. Like, you know, Faran's mother is a perfectionist. She wants to be presented in a pristine and perfect way. But also at the same time, she's like a wretched bully that likes playing tricks on people. That's really cool. You know, Tabby's mom was kind of the good girl of the group. She was the heart and soul that, like, despite her friends being these vile people, she would still cave and give in to the bullying that they do, despite knowing it's wrong. That's interesting to explore. I would have liked to see that. You know, Noah's mother is a up-and-coming drug addict who's starting off by smoking a lot of cigarettes. It'd be nice to see her downfall and descent into becoming a full-on drug addict as a teenager. That would have been interesting to explore. Mouse's mom was a closeted lesbian who was afraid of coming out and did some vile things because of it. That would have been nice to explore, especially since, you know, given the context of when these scenes took place, it was the year, like, 2000 and 1999, so, like, obviously, coming out as gay back then was really dangerous. And then, you know, Imogen's mom, Davy, I don't know, man. Something about a Mean Girl character just really hits with me. Because, like, I recently got into the movie Mean Girls with the remake, and then I went back and watched the original. And, like, the evil Mean Girl bitchy character of Regina George was just really fun to see on screen. So seeing that Imogen's mother, Davy, was that kind of character and was just, like, this evil, vile person who just, like, messing with people for fun was so entertaining. Plus, we could also explore how Angela got attacked by Tom Beasley. Like, there's just so much they could have done with all the stuff that they showed us as, like, these minimalistic flashbacks. And, like, I don't know, I feel like that would have been really cool, and I would have liked to see it. So, it's a shame that none of that happened, and they decided to do this, like, weird, like, time jump thing as, like, oh, hey, we jumped 20 years in the future. Isn't that crazy? But, like, man, I don't care about the 20-year time jump. Like, a time skip's only impressive if I care about the characters, and I didn't know anything about these characters when it happened, so it was just kind of like, oh, you pulled me away from what I was interested in. So, you know, I figured I would mention that. I just think the show would have been cooler if it had focused up on that, but, you know, it is the way it is now, and it's not like, you know, I can go back in time and change the show, so that's what happened.
Alright, I get it!
Ah, man. Okay. This was a long one. This is the longest video I have ever made for my channel as a whole. It's the longest video I've ever made just in general so far. So this was a lot. I had a lot to say about this show, and it was a crazy experience doing something so in-depth for the first time, and I quite enjoyed it, if I'm being perfectly honest. I know I had a lot of negative things to say about the show, but, like, listen, if anyone who worked on this show, between the actors, the writers, directors, etc., don't take any of this personally. I have nothing against you. I may not like your show, but that doesn't mean I hate any of you as people. You know, I just think the show wasn't handled all that well. And obviously, I've made videos that aren't great either that people have criticized. So, like, I totally understand, like, something not being good and, you know, people criticizing you for it. So don't take any of this seriously or personally. You know, I still enjoy your shows, whether or not I'm venting about them or just, like, I'm a really big fan of, like, what you've made. So, like, you know, Roberto, I know you've made, like, a bunch of Marvel comics, and, like, I've been meaning to read, like, a few of them, especially your Nightcrawler run, but, you know, don't take any of this personally. You know, I hold nothing against you. And any of you who like this show, you know, I'm not attacking you for liking the show. You can like what you like. I most definitely like things that people hate. Hell, I watch anime. Most anime is garbage. Like, I watch isekais, bro. All of them are basically trash, except this one. This one's really good. And if you say it's bad, you're wrong. And that's it. You're just wrong. There's no argument here. So, you know, I completely understand, like, something you love being heavily criticized, but don't let that stop you from enjoying it. You know, it is what it is. I just made this video because the show really irritated me with how it was written, and I just need to vent. I wanted to get it off my chest, and that's how I felt about it, and this is just how I wanted to express those emotions. But, yeah, well, that's everything I really had to say about Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, and I'm so happy that I am done talking about this scene. Oh, damn. That's right. I said I was going to talk about the second season. Wait, the video's not over. Maybe I can take it back!